always have our coats.
I don't.
No, oh my gosh, no, don't do it just because I'm complaining.
It is a little heat up when the body's good.
Yeah. It's just Lisa and I just always bring our big coats. So when I come in here in June with this coat, just know why.
7:02, and I will call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. For those of you who are here to make comment on the rezone, just so you know, in a minute I'll open public comments, but that is for anything not on the agenda. We will get to the public hearing later where you'll be able to speak. I'll also mention these cards are going around. You do not need one to make public comment. If one of these makes it into my hand, though, when we get there, I'll just call these names first. But again, you don't have to fill one out. You'll still be able to comment. With that, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rory, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Councilmember Gettle.
Here.
Sperry.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Robinson. Here. And Glover is excused.
Thank you. We'll first hear our unified police report from Chief Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. For time's sakes, I won't have anything to report tonight other than I am going to present a team citation. Prior to that, do you have any questions for me? I hope you all got the statistical report along with the financial statements that came out last week. And obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to speak out. If there are no further questions, I will ask that the Sheriff Rivera come up with me. I wasn't sure if the sheriff was going to make it tonight. Also, Chief Mazarin is in the audience. If I could get Chief Chris Ownby, Lieutenant Malone, Chief Brad Larson from UFA, and we still have a lot of backup in the audience. So what I wanted to do is recognize a significant team effort, and what we have in UPD is called a Team Impact Award. As you know, on the 26th of January, we had a significant event where we closed down a living center that had absolutely deplorable conditions. This wasn't before we made attempts prior to get those conditions taken care of and rectified in a quick manner, and it didn't happen. So with coordination with the city manager, the health department, UFA, UPD, UTA, and actually Midvale Public Works, we rectified that situation in short order. It really went into effect about 10 o'clock in the morning when we all met down on site, and I didn't count the total resources involved or personnel involved. I do know that we're over 20 from Unified Police Department, well over 20 from the hazmat contingency and the UFA backup contingency, 3 from UTA, the city manager, as mentioned, and Glenn Kennedy with Public Works. With all the names and the citation, I've asked Sheriff Rivera to read the citation, but prior to, I'm going to summarize the activities of the day because there are so many people that aren't specifically mentioned in the citation, but their impact was significant. I'll tell you that when I showed up on scene, the night prior, Chief Ownby and I had a pretty robust discussion on the conditions at the house and how it wasn't right and it wasn't compatible for human occupancy. And he promised me one guy. And I was, I'm very, if you know Mark Utley, he's my Swiss Army pocket knife of detectives that does everything. He was all over this, as was Sergeant Sampson, our mental health unit. They had worked with this location for a couple days prior to, if not months prior to. And the efforts that went in that day, when I walked up, and I didn't see just one guy from the Special Victims Unit, I saw the supervisor as well as every single person in the Special Victims Unit had been assigned to the team. It was kind of surprising because they're all standing there in Tyvek suits. They had on the COVID masks. I didn't recognize half of them. That was also the same day that Susie, our new administrative assistant showed up and was introduced as someone who she wasn't and was given the cold shoulder by UPD until we realized she was part of the team, and then she was welcomed in. But we all, with cooperation with Unified Fire Authority, set up incident command. We set Mark Utley as the incident commander and Sergeant Sampson from the mental health unit as a co-incident manager. As we went in, UFA provided a decontamination station and process that was second to none. Part of that included, we had incident command for special victims unit where they did, once the folks had been decontaminated and given clean clothing, they were given a medical assessment by Unified Fire Authority. They were interviewed by the special victims unit, and then UTA responded. They had a bus on site so we could get these folks out of the public's view into a warm environment where Sergeant Sampson worked tirelessly to find them housing that day. These weren't just people that were in a care center. These people needed specific mental health care, and it wasn't where we could, put them on the streets, and nor would we do that. So I can tell you that Sergeant Sampson, as late as 8 o'clock that night, was looking to find the last person a safe place, and this was at a hospital where this person needed to be. They had various health conditions that we're confident that if we had just put them up in a hotel or even temporary housing, we would have probably checked on someone who may have passed during the night just due to the circumstance. So incredible work from Jody. The sheriff, I know, had to get a hold of the mayor, who pulled a couple strings, got the health department down there. We all met with the fire marshal, who did some incredible work doing an inspection on the house, found ultimately multiple violations, which we were aware of, but even more on the fire side or the hazard side. So we closed the residence to occupancy, which wasn't our goal initially. It was to make it safe, but it just didn't happen in short enough time. Also, I'd like to mention the forensics unit. They came, they showed up to something. They had to Tyvek suit up, go in, document the house. And this is a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing to see people kept like this, let alone the circumstances of the house. The house was beyond description as far as how unsafe it was, as well as unhealthy as it was. UTA did a fantastic job. I'll tell you, Glenn Kennedy, I made a call to Matt late in the afternoon, and UTA had a deal where they'd loan us the bus, but they couldn't actually transport the folks on the bus down to the precinct as we continued to process them. I asked Matt if we could get the Midvale City bus, and here comes Glenn in the senior center bus. And by then, we had actually got enough people to respond and take the residents directly to the different housing arrangements that Glenn had 3 people in the bus. And we moved the bus, and UTA was good about restaging the bus down behind the police precinct. But Glenn was missing for about a half hour with these 3 folks. And I just thought it was odd until Glenn rolled up and every one of them had I think it was Chick-fil-A or Arby's. He took them all to dinner. And I think what really touched my heart about Glenn is he said he had to have, he had conversations with these 3, and he said they were fun to talk to. They're good guys. And I don't think they realized, what was being done, but it was, you could see Glenn was kind of glowing, and that was, Glenn, that's a little unusual. So really, I don't want to keep talking or bragging, but the team impact with all the agencies on board, within a matter of about 12 hours, we had taken care of this in the best way humanly possible and in a humane way. And this wasn't just dumping people somewhere. This was to make sure they had the care they needed. So, KO, do you anything else you want to add to this?
No, I just want to say that, they worked on this for quite a while, and when agencies that we felt had oversight of this problem and then didn't respond that we felt like they should, that our folks said, we'll just see about that. And came together, had a plan, and got these people out of this horrific condition that nobody should be exposed to. So, well done.
So, Sheriff, if you wouldn't mind reading the citation afterwards, I'll just kind of do a roll call of those involved. And as you can see, there are quite a few here, but there are even more that didn't make it this evening.
And I do want to say how much I appreciate everybody involved. I was there and I got to observe the teamwork. It's important that we continue to do that, especially in these type of cases. And when he said I called the mayor, he was referring to the county mayor to get the Salt Lake County Health Department moving. And then I also wanted to mention the Salt Lake County Jail also assisted because they brought out a bus to transport to Utah County. And I've never seen our deputies so excited to get out of that jail and come and help. They actually thanked us for that. So, but it took a lot of resources, and super proud of these guys. The job isn't over though. These type of cases will take months before they're finished, and you know, mainly the detectives will still have to continue following up, and then our Metro Mental Health Unit. Our Metro Mental Health Unit has been such an important resource to Salt Lake County as a whole since we decided to move it from Unified Police Department to a Metro unit to help the entire county. And this is a perfect example of what that unit can do for people. I truly believe lives were saved that day, because if they lived in those conditions much longer, somebody would have lost their life. So just wanted to make that comment. Now, this is a long citation, so I'm going to do the best I can, and it's really teeny, and I'm old, so we're going to go for it. So, this is a team citation award, January 2022. Midvale Code Enforcement and UPD Metro Mental Health Unit discovered deplorable living conditions and several safety violations at an assisted living center within Midvale City. Investigators contacted the Salt Lake County Health Department and made additional inspections. Attempts to improve conditions for the clients living within the center were not adequate, and it was determined that a coordinated effort would be the most effective relief for those suffering from the poor conditions. Chief Ombie assigned the entire UPD Special Victims Unit to assist with the interviews of the clients. UFA Fire Marshal inspected the facility and confirmed the building was not fit for human occupancy. Ultimately, they closed the facility with support of the Salt Lake County Health Department. Incident Command was established with Detective Utley as an incident commander and Sergeant Sampson as a co-incident commander. UFA provided a hazmat decontamination team and processed each client from the centers so they could change their soiled clothing and provide clean Tyvek suits. A medical assessment was completed on each client following the decontamination procedure. The UPD Special Victims Unit interviewed each client and escorted them into a warm UTA bus that was staged on site for the convenience and safety of the clients. Sergeant Sampson of the UPD Metro Mental Health Unit searched tirelessly for care facilities that could accommodate the needs of the clients, ultimately finding safe and secure housing for each. All who participated are commended for their teamwork as well as attention to duty. The efforts resulted in 16 vulnerable adults being removed from this horrific living conditions and being placed in housing and care that was suited for their needs. That's it.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'll just go down a roll call now. If you're here in the audience, and what I'm really proud of is you see a lot that are here with their families. I love it when the family comes, because without the support of the family, these things take a devastating toll on our mental health. So first off, Josh Smith of Code Enforcement for UPD. I saw Josh. Come on up, Josh. You hand those. Yeah, and Josh, if you wouldn't mind, counsel, if you just go down and shake hands, and you probably met some of these folks, Josh. Detective Jeff Fenton, Detective Ashley Walton, Detective Kevin Takano, Detective Andrea Durker. I don't know if I saw her. And retired Detective Madison Mahonsky, and I was told she was coming tonight, but I don't see her. From the UPD Metro Mental Health Unit, Sergeant Sampson. Detective Mark Utley. From the UPD Special Victims Unit, Sergeant Rob Scott, he's the unit supervisor. Detective Keith Borders. Detective Amy Race. Detective Tiffany Parker. Detective Chris Benedict. Detective Kamisha Housley. Sorry if I... Detective Chris Christensen, I did not see. Detective Chris Sullivan and Kaylee McCloskey. Come on up, Kaylee. UPD Forensics, I saw Brent Benner and Lenora Glass. Brad, would you mind reading off your UFA fire personnel for me? I've got them starting there, and it'll go on to the second page.
Okay, we have Area Fire Marshal Dave Bradley. And then a group from our stations that weren't able to make it tonight. Hazmat 126, Captain Ben Shear. Jordan Tippett's firefighter. Andrew Ridd, Hazmat Specialist. Robert Brumet, paramedic. Todd Mickelson, engineer. Gordon O'Hara, paramedic. Hazmat 124, Captain Dave Lee. Heber Anderson, engineer. Corey Bates, firefighter. Dawson Givens, firefighter. Adam Park, paramedic. Kevin Birmingham, paramedic. Station 125, Captain Darren Monson. Tyler Owensby, engineer. Ben Edgeworth, paramedic. Stockton Hansen, firefighter. Misei Noemi Yama, part-time EMS. Dylan DeVogue, part-time EMS.
Thank you, sir. And as mentioned, UTA Police, Matt Dahl, City Manager, come on down. You're part of the team.
You don't have to go around and shake our hands, but.
You're not even going to come down? Come on, Matt. And Glenn Kennedy from Public Works, please. Matt, thank you. Glenn, thank you. Thank you for the bus ride. Thank you all. If we could have everyone just come up in front of the podium and get a quick glamour shot, I'd really appreciate it.
Chief, I just want to, I know it's a team award and it was a large team effort, and we appreciate all of the assistance that we received from all the groups that you said, UFA, UPD, and to individually identify anyone on my part, I hope doesn't diminish the importance of the whole group, but I know they've been mentioned already, but Sergeant Sampson, Detective Utley, Josh, Detective Smith, in the lead up to this event, after this event, the amount of effort that continued, that wasn't, what everyone would consider to be sort of just pure law enforcement, but was really, really sort of a neighborhood, caring about the neighborhood, caring about the community in a almost more of a social working type way. It's something that I know a lot of people don't think about when it comes to police, and I think would be really surprised at how much effort everyone put in, but really those three helped me out. They helped me have a better perspective on what the situation was, and I also deal a lot in affordable housing and know the difficulties of finding people housing these days. We're in the middle of a housing crisis, and it's a very challenging situation, and the work that Sergeant Sampson was able to put in to finding these individuals housing was something that I did not think was possible if we had a week, let alone one way to do it. And so again, thank you to all of you. Thank you to you three. I appreciate everything that you've done.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Rory's taking pictures, right, Rory?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. And then one couple more. This way. Oh, I wish I could get everyone. Jeez. Thank you, everyone.
You got one over here.
Oh, yeah, this one works.
Oh, good. I'll have you text it to
Forensics
me.
is here, they can do it.
That's right.
I'm not used to lag.
Just an iPhone.
Okay, I got one.
Did you get the chalk around the body? Oh, that would be, that.
That's very cool. Thank you so much.
As I hope everyone can see, we've got a pretty incredible group of individuals that work here in Midvale who really work to do their best to help our residents, and just so thankful for each of them and their hard work in that awful situation. Getting on to our next item is public comments. Again, this is for any portion not addressed on the agenda. So if there is anybody who would like to make public comment, you may do so by stepping forward to the mic here and giving your name. You'll have 3 minutes for that. Seeing none?
Rory, did we receive?
None.
None online either. Thank you, Rory.
You're welcome.
Okay, council reports. Councilmember Sperry.
The only thing this evening, Mayor, well, Chief is out, but I was just going to tell him thanks and to his staff for watching on the east side and about 78th and 80th South for some of the speeding right on the border of Sandy and the race car driving. So we talked to him earlier, and I know that they're watching that more closely than they have been and working with Sandy Police. So we appreciate that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Gettle.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to share some news. There's a group called Better Days in Utah, and they're having a traveling exhibit this next year for Martha Hughes Cannon, where they're going to have a lot of memorabilia going around to different locations across Utah. And I saw this a few weeks ago, and I offered Midvale City Hall as a location for it, and we were selected as a location. So they're going to provide more details later, but I just wanted to let you guys know I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to like actual Martha Hughes Cannon memorabilia and stuff that they'll lend us for a couple of weeks.
Sorry, do you know when that is? Next year?
No, it's actually this year. Sorry, next fiscal year. So they said that they were going to get back with some details, and then I'll get those to like you, Mayor, and City Manager. Sorry to do that but I assumed that no one would hate that idea. So I'm pretty excited. They said by the end of January, it being February 15th, we're past that, but I'm anticipating some more information about that soon.
Perfect.
And that's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, I just have a couple things. I'd like to thank the city. I've pushed a lot to tour the new Zion's building because I kind of want to see where it's going. It was good to go over there and look at it. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get Apache helicopters because I feel like that's what other elected officials got today for tours. We were not in that boat. Maybe next time if you can get that to work, Matt. And also I emailed you and Glenn. I don't know where else to go with this. Midvale Elementary, they've reached out to me again about some other traffic flow issues. They don't know. There's a lot of vehicles that pull into Midvale Elementary, and they're like, what if we close off Oak Street entrance, or what if we close off another entrance? And I'm like, I think you should probably work with the school district, but they're like, well, what if it's a city road? So who should I get them in touch with on the city end for something along that lines? I'm like, this is way out of my pay grade.
Yeah, so when we originally were looking at that, we were looking at it for the, there was some bush issues or whatnot.
Yeah, they've reached out about other things.
Other things, but I'd be happy to talk to them and make sure we get them to the right people because I think there's some
Yeah,
There's a few
agency
different
issues.
departments that need to get in that, so.
Okay, I'll get him your info.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Robinson?
I just really quickly wanted to express my gratitude to UFA and UPD and all the other agencies that dealt with the house and helping everybody find those homes. But other than that, I have nothing tonight.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Glover is excused. For myself, had a UFA board meeting this morning. One thing that will be publicly available soon is UFA is asking that every community rename the fire stations within their cities. So Midvale has 2 of them. We are about to open fire station number 125, and because of that, UFA asked us to be the guinea pig and start a public process to name the fire station. So that process will be beginning. At this point, it sounds like between the staff at Midvale City and the council will be giving out some names of recommendations, and then also taking public input on their own names and going from there. I'll also quickly mention that part of this new role for me in making sure that Midvale City has relationships both at our legislature and other cities. In the last 2 weeks, I've now met with, I need to count, 5 different mayors, West Jordan, Holiday, Draper, Sandy, and Bluffdale, having really positive conversations there, especially as we have issues come up like shelter mitigation funding, making sure that we have support there from our regional partners here in Salt Lake County. And I know Councilmember Brown brought this up, but the Zions Bank Tour, really great building to see with their 70% of that building is powered by solar. It's an all-electric building, and for everybody here, that will be open in July. They've still got a lot of work to go, but that's their goal, and they said it's going to happen, and it'll happen by July. And that's it for me. To save time, our next item here was the city manager report, but we are going to go past that. We also are going to go past the department report. Again, this is so we can get onto other items on the agenda. So this is going to lead us into the public hearings portion of our agenda. For item A, I'll ask for a motion to open public hearing.
Mayor, I move that we enter into a public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Our first item, consider proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2022 budget for the general fund and other funds as necessary. Do we have, this was presented to us at our last council meeting. Any discussion on that? If not, I would ask for a motion to, sorry, getting ahead of myself. With not doing a presentation on this, if there's any public comment on the fiscal year 2022 budget amendments, now would be your time to step up and give that public comment. You'll have 3 minutes. Seeing none?
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Public hearing is closed. I would ask for to adopt the action item on item A.
Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 2022-R06, amending budgets of the general fund, capital projects fund, water fund, sewer fund, fleet fund, and information technology for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
And Gettle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. That motion passes. Okay, moving on to item B. Is there a motion to open up the public hearing on item B?
I move that we go into a public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Perfect, that passes. Okay, item B, consider proposed text amendments to Title 17 of the Midvale Municipal Code to address amendments required by House Bill 1003. We'll hear from Adam Olson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. This text amendment has been run through staff a number of times. It went to Planning Commission about a month ago, and it's before you tonight. What this does is it addresses requirements imposed or on municipalities by House Bill 1003. And really what that does is it addresses the ability to implement design review standards for single-family and duplex dwellings in the city. So with that, what we did is we made amendments to our zoning code to address the design review requirements that can and cannot be looked at. And so the HB 1003, basically what it does, it adds a prohibition of building design regulation elements for single-family and duplex dwellings, but it does carve out some exceptions. And those exceptions are listed on the screen and in your report, so I won't read all of them, but just to list off some of them. If a residential area was largely developed before 1950, that's an exception. Water-efficient landscaping requirements is an exception. If there's floodplain requirements set forth by FEMA, and also if it's in a historic district. And so the amendments before you tonight implement that language which allows for the design review regulations if one of those exceptions is met. This went before the Planning Commission. They discussed it and recommended approval, and so it is here before you tonight. Again, this just brings us into compliance with House Bill 1003, which was done last year.
Thank you, Adam. This hearing is now open for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this item? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to close public comment?
Move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
That passes. Is there a motion to accept the item B action?
Mayor, I move that we adopt the proposed text amendment to update Title 17 zoning to address amendments required by HB 1003.
Second?
Any discussion? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
And Sperry.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to item C, I'd ask for a motion to open public hearing.
Move that we go into a public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have opened the public hearing for consider request to amend Chapter 17-7-1.4A2 parenthesis A parenthesis 17-7-2.4A.2A, 17-7-3.1A.2A of the Midvale City Municipal Code relating to projections into side yard setbacks. Adam Olson.
Again, thank you, Mayor and Council. So for all of those sections that you just recited, the actual amendment itself is quite simple. There are areas in the code where the projections can be 3 feet and areas that are 2.5. And so in order to create more consistency and easier for individuals to implement and understand as they're going about this, we propose that instead of the 2.5 feet for the items listed on your screen, that it go to 3, as is allowed for other projections. Again, this just allows greater consistency as we move forward. The Planning Commission looked at this and recommended approval as well.
Adam, I'm glad we're running through this, and I just have a 2-second bit about this because I was the one that sort of brought this to attention. The issue I had with this to begin with is this is one of those, I guess, that could be interpreted one way or another by a planner because the contractor working on a project that I know of, his home, like the actual contractor's home's in Midvale, He did one that was within this a few years ago, right? And our code never changed. So when we have something that's open to interpretation, we should be looking towards ways to adjust code to modernize our property, right? Because at the end of the day, this is so firemen can get in and out of a basement to save a kid, or a kid can crawl out the window, right? So, you know, I would encourage the planning department generally when they come across things, especially like this, like an ingress and egress window, like, oh, hey, look, this is sort of to make a home newer and more modern. Maybe we should look at the code instead of saying, hey, this doesn't fit in the code. And that's all I sort of ask going forward, because I would like people to be able to update their homes and stay. And that's so I'm glad we're getting to this point. So,
Understand, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay.
Well, I have one. I mean, to build on what Councilmember Brown said, it's a little off topic from this, but he's brought it up before that in some of the areas in your district, you know, touching on being able to modernize the homes. Are we looking at any of the other setback issues? Because some of the people that have that, you know, detached garage, and they wanted to, you know, enlarge it, or I guess even put in a garage in some of those issues, so that we keep some of those longer term residents, because we've heard from some of them that they want to make improvements, but because of the setbacks on some of those older lots, they're prohibited, and so they're moving. Are we looking at any of that?
Nate,
This is a good start, but is it on the list?
We've had that on our list, and we've been looking at it a little bit. There's some nuances to that are
There always are.
beyond what this is here, so it's a lot easier to take care of this.
No, I agree. This is good. I just want to make sure that's still on the list, and we are looking at it.
We are still looking at it, trying to figure out ways to.
Do you know where that is in sort of this scheduling when we think we'll be able to?
I don't know where that is.
It's done by tomorrow, right?
yesterday.
Okay.
Thank you. This hearing is now open for public comment. Is there anyone who desires to comment on this item? Seeing none?
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Public comment is now closed on item C. Is there a motion to accept action on item C?
Yep. Mayor, I move that we approve the amendment to Chapter 17-7-1.4.A.2, subsection A, 17-7-2.4.A.2, subsection A, 17-7-3.4.A.2, subsection A, and 17-7-4.4.A.2, subsection A, relating to projections into side yard setbacks of the Midvale City Municipal Code with the findings noted in the staff report.
Second.
Any discussion? Lori, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Sperry,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. Okay, moving on to item D. Is there a motion to open the public hearing on item D?
Move that we go into a public hearing?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. All right, for the public hearing on item D, considered Adam Langford representing Wasatch Residential Group request for large-scale master plan approval for a property located at 8090 South Sagini Drive in the Jordan Bluffs Zone sub-area for JB-4 zone. We'll hear from Elizabeth Arnold.
Thanks. Okay, so yes, this is for a large-scale master plan approval for the Jordan Bluffs Phase 3 portion. You'll see here the subject property just kind of off Ivy and Bingham Junction. Phase 1 and Phase 2 have already been completed and built. Those are just to the north and east on this map. So here is their overall site plan for all of sub-area 4. Again, that portion to what now is on the left-hand part of your screen is phase 1. That is completed. And phase 2, that's up top. So phase 3 is just this portion in the corner, and there's a closer picture of that site plan. So as part of this, they do have to meet large-scale development standards that are outlined in the code, and those cover things ranging from environmental strengths to density requirements, open space, landscaping, and staff has found that they do meet all of these requirements. They're well under the density for all of sub-area 4 and meet all those requirements listed in the code. So staff is recommending approval. Planning Commission also recommended approval of this item, and the recommended motion has stayed the same as included in your staff report.
Is this the for sale section, or is this the other side of? This is oriented funny to me.
The last I remember, there were apartments.
They are apartments.
These are okay.
I believe
Or
so.
rental units, I should say. I don't know if
Oh,
they're.
the for
Yes.
sale is going south, right?
Correct.
Not okay. Never mind.
Yeah. I believe the developer is here, though, and he could always speak to that.
Yeah.
I mean, is this just another phase of the same apartment complex, or it's a completely separate complex? Maybe we can have Mr. Langford respond to that.
Adam Langford, Wasatch Residential Group, 620 South State Street, Salt Lake City. Yeah, to answer your question, this is a totally separate phase, so it'll have its own clubhouse, separate management as far as, you know, its own community management, things like that.
So
it's
no cross easement where they're sharing amenities or anything. It's standalone.
Well, it's standalone, but that big park across the street, I mean, we're not going to tell people they can't go over there. But yes, this has its own amenity package. Yeah, different clubhouse, and it's a totally different product too.
So the one we approved for the setback change with.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like the whole idea is it looks like a large house. So there's lots of front doors, lots of porches, lots of garages. We're trying to do something totally different than what's out there. But this is the last phase out of the whole project, the sub-area 4. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any other comments or questions from council?
I have a question maybe Elizabeth might know the answer to. It says public notice has been sent to property owners within 500 feet. Do you know approximately how many property owners were notified? Wait, where did she go? Oh, there she is.
I can tell you, give me just 1 second.
Just curious, since most of that area are rental units at this point, if,
It would just be Wasatch, wouldn't?
well, I'm thinking there could be homes on IV 700 West impacted.
For those online, Elizabeth Arnold is looking up the exact number for us.
We had that going to 23.
And it says here, no objections have been received as of the writing of this report. Does that include the public hearing for this meeting, and also this was before the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Correct.
So
Yes. We
there's-
did send notices out for both of these meetings. We did not receive any written objections.
Okay,
Thanks.
interesting. Thank you.
And I mean, another thing to clarify, so that's being sent out to the owners within 500 feet. I mean, legally, we could go down to 300, but we increased that in, what, last year or in recent years to make sure more notice was going out, correct? So, okay.
Okay. This hearing is now open for public comment. If anybody would like to comment on this item, you may step up to the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes. Okay. Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to close public comment.
Move that we close the public hearing?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept item D, the action?
Mayor, I move that we approve the large-scale master plan for the Jordan Bluffs Phase 3 located 8090 South, Seguini Drive, with the findings noted in the summary report.
Second?
Any discussion? Rory, will you call roll?
Councilmember Gettle.
No.
Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. And Brown.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Okay, moving on to item E. Is there a motion to open the public hearing on item E?
Move that we go into a public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, for item E, consider Nancy Stoddard's request rezone approval for a property located at 170 East 7200 South from single-family residential / duplex overlay 7200 South overlay SF-1/DO/ 7200 South to mixed use 7200 South overlay MU/ 7200 South to allow for a small mental health office. Elizabeth Arnold.
Yes, thank you. So this is for a rezone request at 170 East and 7200 South. So you'll see it just on the corner there of Fort Union and Romney. This is the concept plan that they have submitted, which is just to remodel the existing home and allow for a small mental health office there. So that is still a concept plan, which is submitted as part of the rezone, but does get approved and looked at more closely in later processes. So for the rezone, Midvale City Code does outline 3 criteria that a proposal could possibly meet, and does need to meet at least one in order to grant the rezone. So in our review as staff, we found that the project met both criteria 1 and criteria 3. There is a diverse mix of business and residential opportunities in the area, so we feel it is in the public interest to encourage redevelopment of that area. The general plan has also laid out some land use goals and identified this subject property as being in the East Gateway Opportunity Area. So there are the land use goals that kind of serve as guiding elements for us as we review rezone requests. Staff does feel that it meets goal 6 here, that kind of provides a light commercial buffer to the residential zones around it and primarily to the south. We did receive some public comment for this, so most of that was included in your packet that was sent out. Anything that has been received since, I believe Rory has been sending to you, but I also printed out copies for you as well in case you didn't get them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there are some largely against the rezone, a couple for, and they do encompass the rezone we'll be considering next, but some of them do address this one as well in the public comment. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the project, and staff is also recommending approval, and the recommended motion has remained the same as included in your report.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the council?
So one of the comments I noticed was there'd be like 1 parking spot, right? Is that accurate? I mean, the way this picture's sort of drawn, it's not, the quality is pretty poor for this, so it's hard for me to sort of judge what's going on.
So that would be reviewed at a later point as part of a preliminary or final site plan that they would have to submit if the rezone was approved. So they do have parking requirements that they'd have to meet as part of doing a commercial or office space.
I guess I should have put this another way. Could you address how many spots this likely would need? Because people are worried that there's just 1 spot, which I didn't think was accurate. It's hard to tell from this photo, right?
Yeah.
Or drawing. So if you could say like, well, this will need 7 spots or something like that, that would help at least address that complaint.
Yes.
And that really puts you on the spot because it might be kind of hard to know like right now. But it's more than 1, I would assume.
It is. I think part of it depends on how many therapists or how many square feet. So I'm not sure what the dimensions are of the building. I don't know if maybe.
I saw that the applicant addressed that question. directly.
Okay.
So
I can look.
she-
It will probably take me a minute to find it, but
Okay.
I can do that.
Yeah, I just think it'd be good to state it, because there was some objection,
Okay.
if we could.
Yeah.
Is the applicant here?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I have to say exactly other than my name, Nancy Stoddard. I am the applicant, and we can fit up to 4 cars in the front. It's all a concrete slab, and if needed, there is a dirt area that another concrete slab could be added into as well. But right now, we could fit up to 4 cars right in kind of this, I guess it's on the side of the house, and there is other parking around to the side. There will be between 1 to 3 therapists there at any given time, and we really just meet with one client at a time. So really, it's a very low density, between 1 to 3 cars an hour that would be moving in and out of those spots.
Externally, it would look pretty similar to what it is now, correct? It's just,
Yes,
you're
except
just trying to meet the requirements to not do this, I don't know, illegally or whatever, right?
that is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
we appreciate that.
Yes. Any other?
So it says it's going to be used for business. No, there's nobody residing on the property. It's just during business hours. Well, I guess
Yes.
any time that they're meeting with it. Okay.
Yes, it's pretty Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
The original house will still be occupied, correct? Or is that, okay.
I have your parking requirements. Step right in here. So they'd need 3 spaces for every 1,000 square feet of space that they have in the home would be required.
So they might need up to 6 or something, because I'm guessing,
Something like that.
And they can't use street parking for that, to
No,
meet that
that would be
requirement.
off-street.
so they
Yeah.
have to provide. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Liz, I'm going to say some stuff, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong as I'm talking about this. But just as a quick reminder on these rezones, is that generally the way that this is intended to work is that there is a general plan in the city that indicates where certain types of development are supposed to occur. That plan is then supposed to be translated into zoning changes throughout the city to incorporate that general plan. The last one was done in 2016, and so we've had many discussions up here about how much we are still invested in that original general plan. We know that there is a reason for us to relook at that plan, do probably a new general plan in the near term. But as staff is going through and looking at making recommendations for pursuing a rezone or not pursuing a rezone, oftentimes that is because we're basing that off of existing policy that is in the city, for example, the general plan. Those were referenced in here. So I think that there has been some confusion about why we would take a certain stance on a property or whatever, but really in the end, it's about implementing what is the existing policy. Now, the other thing is that there's 2 items that are of similar zones that are coming up here that we're going to be discussing. One of the questions that had been asked previously was about, and it's the next item, with a recommendation by the Planning Commission for something to not be approved, why that still ends up with the City Council. And in the end, there are 2 different functions when we're dealing with planning-related issues. One is an administrative issue, and that goes back to, again, the sort of fulfilling the policies that exist. And then there's a legislative component to it, which is what occurs tonight. So as we're addressing this item, and as well as the next one, or any of the rezoning changes, we're making a recommendation based off that policy, but that does not require the council to necessarily follow that, because we are essentially setting new policy as we make that decision about what we're going to do with the zoning. So I just wanted to sort of clarify that. Part of that has to also do with the fact that there's a lot of sort of focus on what the proposed project is, what the exact dimensions or design or whatever that of the project is going to be. And while there is a relationship between these 2 things, and it's definitely worth discussing, tonight we're just saying, are all of the things that are allowed in this zone stuff that we can live with being on this property, which could be different than what is necessarily being described. And so that's a big part of this is, does this zone make sense? The next phase is the project component of this. I know that can kind of be a little bit confusing as we go through and talk about it, and particularly for the audience, understanding what is happening tonight, what decisions can be made, and why we maybe, for example, don't have a full set of plans for this particular item, because the larger question is this the appropriate zone for implementing the policy that is created in the general plan for the city? Did I misstate anything?
Matt, can I maybe say that in simpler terms?
Sure.
That will maybe help, because that was even confusing to me. Tonight, we're only voting on, or looking at rezone, not the projects presented themselves, just the rezone.
All the other stuff
I
is
don't know if
important
that's
too.
actually helpful. It is important, you're right.
I would just like to add, maybe to simplify the whole process even further moving forward, is to put on the agendas the rezone request and not the potential project that could go there, because I think that's what causes some confusion amongst the community, because, you know, if you say this other one that we're going to discuss later has like a planned 17 townhomes or whatever, but, you know, that means nothing if we don't do the rezone. So I think that would definitely lend to less confusion amongst community members. Anyway, to just do it that way in the future.
Councilman Gettle, I agree that it does muddy the water, and I think we still show, it has some importance because it does show in sort of that intent at the end, but I can definitely see where it also causes confusion in what we're doing. So, I mean, we can continue to try to improve what our system is on this, but I also think that communicating the intent of the developer has some value as part of this process as well.
Yeah, I ping pong back and forth with this discussion in my head because, you know, technically, we can approve that rezone for this or for the next one, and they can come in tomorrow and give us completely new plans that fit within the zoning, right? So, like this one right here, they could, you know, change the plans drastically. That would look very different than sort of a house that's, and I'm not saying you guys will, and I'm not saying the other group will all of a sudden make a 12-unit townhome or whatever more extreme they could go on the other end. So it's kind of challenging because we have seen that in the past where we've approved a rezone for something and things changed enough that where it was for the better, and sometimes it changed that made people sort of frustrated. But the citizens sort of have to understand that that's how the property rights work, and it's a challenge to sort of get around. But you know, we try to work within that framework, you know, that's best for the community. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. It doesn't. They do change it after rezone sometimes. You know, I think that's the exception to the rule because usually they're coming in with a plan and they want to go forward. But we did see that just east of this, right? That we had rezoned years ago for a commercial medical facility. That never came to fruition, and after about 2 years of trying to get that done, they switched it to residential, and it was not a rezone request to put residential. It fit the zoning, and I know a lot of people were upset about that. And so, you know, with this, Matt, I agree. All those things you said are important, and as Mayor Stevenson gets to know you better, instead of maybe saying, I'm going to summarize, he will use your term and say, I hear you, but let me add to that or put it in simpler terms. So yeah. That's Matt's catchphrase, Mayor, just so you know, I hear you, but. So,
he's heard it a few times.
Yes, he has. So one thing to add to all of that you were saying is maybe explain, you were talking about the legislative and administrative process and the general plan, or either you or Elizabeth can explain, you know, the change in the zones, exactly what does that mean? And yes, we can't say exactly with a crystal ball, this is what's going to go there, but from what it is right now and what they're asking it to be, and so that people understand that a little bit better of what that change or what the rezone request really is. What do you want to take that? I don't know you're going to say we just kind of explain that, but simplify it a little bit.
Okay, so if I'm understanding what you're asking, yes, their plans can change. The mixed-use zone does allow for a variety of uses, so that can be residential, single, duplex, multifamily. It can allow for like financial institutions or different kinds of businesses. Office is allowed. Religious and educational institutions. So there's a variety of things that they can do. I think to the first part of your question, for all rezone applications, the Planning Commission just makes a recommendation, and then you all are ultimately the deciding body. So,
Well, like right now, the zone, it's a single-family duplex overlay on 7200 South, right? So
yes.
Really, it's just residential. That's all that can be there.
Yes.
They're asking for a rezone so that they can put the mixed-use commercial can go there.
Oh, okay, yes,
Right,
so
that's what I'm
correct.
trying to
Most they could do right now is, I believe, a duplex is the highest density. They could go there without having enough to do a larger, which I don't think that they can master plan in that zone. So yeah, a duplex, and this would just allow them to be able to do some kind of commercial or other use outside of residential.
And that's what, as we look at the general plan, and one of the goals is it's talking about, how it's changed in the area. We can look up and down that 7200 South, and there's a lot of commercial on there now, right? And I think that's probably the future of that. There is some residential, but I think for the most part it is a commercial area. This would be, light commercial, but it is a change. So.
Thanks.
Last chance for comments.
Just a question, with the light commercial aspect of this, can you just explain, how that insurance billing portion works? Do we, the city, recapture some of the, because as far as I know, there's no tax or anything, there's no, when you bill an insurance company, do you bill for taxes as well? That would then benefit the city?
Yeah, I don't think there's any sales tax as part of that.
So
it's property tax. So it would switch it from
to 50%.
a single family where they get a discounted a 55% property tax. By going commercial, they're paying 100% property tax.
Yeah, there's just.
And a business
But no
license.
sales
And a
tax.
business license.
Do you want to figure out how to put sales tax on those services? The city would love it.
Well, that's what I'm
The rest
saying.
of us would not,
It's
'cause
a
we
very
would be paying
unusual.
more.
It's not the type of request that we normally get. Normally it's like, we're going to put a business here, and we say, great, that's a wonderful new tax base for us. But, with this one, not so much.
Right.
So,
Right.
If I may make one more comment, and I'll try to make it short, I apologize. There is one tool that we do have at our disposal that we don't typically use for a property of this size, because the potential things that can go there are limited by the size of the lot. But there is the potential to tie a development agreement to a rezone. And what that has the potential of doing, and I'm not recommending it in this situation, but since we're talking about it, I just want to make sure that we're aware that that tool exists, is that we condition the rezone of a property based, and then create an agreement that says, in this particular case, again, I'm not recommending it in this particular case, but you are going to build a commercial building of a certain size, and we're going to require that you have, that's going to be that use, for example. Could be what we would put in that development agreement and attach it to the rezone. Anyways, that is a tool that's at our disposal to ensure that we sort of get the development that we want, especially when the property is large enough to have multiple different types of uses.
Okay, thank you. With that, this hearing is now open for public comment. If anybody would like to comment on this item, you may step up to the mic and take 3 minutes. And please state your name.
My name's Gary Garcia. I live on Romani Avenue, or Romani Drive. I think this should be considered later on after we figure out what's going on with the duplexes, because it's going to look like an eyesore with duplexes around it and 2 buildings in the back of it and a house on the corner. That's going to look tacky. If not, if they decide to do it, demolish it all and make it look all one standard thing so our neighborhood don't look like crap. That's what I have to say. I think you should wait on this one until we figure out what we're doing with the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. And 25 seconds. Wow, look at that. Would anybody like?
He'll reserve his time, so now he wants 5 minutes on the other.
Would anybody else like to comment on this item?
That's not how it works, by the way. You don't get to reserve your time.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay.
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, public hearing is closed on item E. Is there a motion on the action?
Maybe before we tackle that, there might be some discussion amongst council and even you, Mayor, if you have some thoughts on this. I know this, of the two items on tonight's agenda, seems to be the easier of the two. But the gentleman who just spoke kind of did throw a monkey wrench into that with a, you know, yeah, I understand that perspective. So, and I do like what City Manager Dahl said about tying rezones into an actual development plan. So I wouldn't want to go directly into a motion right now, for me anyway.
Can I ask Elizabeth one more thing? So as I'm reading through some of the other comments, you know, one of the concerns somebody raised is if it goes commercial, that it shouldn't be able to go over 2 stories. What would be the, I mean, if it's rezoned, can you just address that? Is it still limited to that, or what's the height?
Okay, so you're asking about height limit
Yeah.
on the building, should we rezone it?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is from Kay and Dan Jensen, talking about, you know, if it's rezoned, I mean, one, they're concerned about multi-use term, but also they talk about businesses should not go over 2 stories in height. And so, just that we can address that, if it's rezoned, what is, you know, how high could it go? And I know you probably got to look that up quick, but.
Yes, I can pull it up for you here. So, for a commercial or a mixed use, their maximum height is 35 feet.
Okay.
Unless you guys find something otherwise. I'll rely on my other planners to double check me here, but what I'm seeing in the 7200 South overlay is what determines their height, and I show.
But could they reasonably make, because what's your setback for that, right? Because that property is super small.
Yeah, you do have a front setback of 25 feet. Most of these would be imposed should they do new development on the lot,
Yeah.
right? But as far as I'm aware, for their concept plan, they're not planning to just remodel.
Right. No, I get that with their
Yeah.
concept plan, but if we, you know, if we did rezone,
Yes,
it could go up to 3 stories, but then we'd have to look at, is the lot even big enough with the setbacks to you know, to do that? Or are
Yes.
they, given the setback requirements, are they really capped at 2 stories anyway?
Yeah.
So, okay.
And it seems unlikely that, I'm guessing there's not a ton of margin in the business, you know, of providing, you know, mental health, and it's an underserved sort of thing, right? So it's not like, I don't necessarily think it's an eyesore because of that, knowing the, you know, who they're serving and the amount of money they probably won't be bringing in to, you know, like make a brand new commercial building. But yeah.
No, I'm not saying that they would do that. I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
It's
No, I get you.
rezoned.
Yeah, they could sell the property, they
Yeah.
could get out, and then the person that buys it goes, oh, I can now, but I just don't know if it.
I mean, I agree. Looking at the size of that lot, I don't know that they could go up 3 stories, meet the setback, and the additional parking that would have to be there.
Yeah.
So I haven't put it to pencil. Anybody else that's quicker at that than me, feel free, but let me know if you think they could go higher than 2 stories, but I don't know if that's feasible.
Well, I know, I'm looking at Ganesh, the Indian center that was put kind of across the street nearby. I mean, it might not be more than 2 stories, but it's higher. It's high enough to be, so, you know, I think it's.
But how big
people,
is that lot that's on?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's a bigger lot, so they, you know, they can meet the setbacks, they can, and that's got a bigger parking lot, right?
True.
On a lot that's 0.17 acres, I don't know that they could go higher and meet the setback and the additional parking.
Yeah. And
I
also,
I don't think they're going to want to put a small parking garage on that either. That's cost prohibitive.
But, you know, also that the Ganesh building, you know, to me anyways, you know, looks pretty nice as you pass it. So you can, you know, just because you put something there doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be something that the entire community hates. So, and, you know, speaking for the applicant, I think, you know, there is money to be made in mental health. You know, there is a service to be provided as well, but, you know, it's.
See who she's married to.
Go ahead.
Did we?
Will you just restate your name, please?
Oh,
Yes, Nancy Stoddard.
Do we need to open it back up?
Oh.
Just public hearing?
Sorry.
So she's fine.
Okay.
I'm okay. Nancy
I
Stoddard.
said you're the applicant, so we don't have to open it back up. You're
Oh, great. Okay. So the appeal to this property for me was that it is a small structure and that it has, you know, some area around it to, I hope to beautify that more so. The therapist, this is not like, we are all individually contracted, and so it's not like a full-on business. We won't be hiring more. I want it to be small and to keep it very contained. That was the draw to this property for me. So I don't have any plans on expanding it, the building itself, in any way, shape, or form.
Just doing cosmetic kind of.
Yes, yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. With the gentleman's point of waiting, we could motion to table this item until after we consider our next item.
I hear that idea. I don't think that it's necessarily fair to this particular applicant to do that because this doesn't have anything to do with the next one other than they're in close proximity to each other. They're different developers. They're far different plans. I think we can all agree on that anyway, that they are 2 different plans.
I agree. I mean, other than the fact of the proximity and they're on the same night, different owners, different projects, we consider them different.
Is the second one using the exit on this lot? That would be because I think that's how it's drawn out, that they are going to Romney from this lot.
And this particular one, as the applicant said, might add 2 or 3 cars at any given time, and that's not to say that all 3 or 4 of those cars would ever be pulling out onto 7200 at the same time.
They don't have access on 7200. They're too Romney.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Romani.
Romney. Say it one more time. Eventually you'll get it.
Comments, questions, or motions?
Mayor, I will move that we approve the rezone located at 170 East, 7200 South, consistent with the findings noted in the summary report.
Second?
Any discussion? Or will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson.
No.
Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. Moving on to our last action item. Is there a motion to open public comment on item F?
I move that we go into a public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Yes.
One day I will say public hearing and not public comment, but I think it's understood, so. Item F, consider Chad Jones, represented Marcus Leonardo, to request rezone approval for a property located at 160 East, 7200 South from single family residential / duplex overlay / 7200 South overlay SF-1 /DO / 7200 South to mixed use / 7200 South overlay MU/7200 South to allow for a proposed 17-unit, 3-story townhome project with a flex space ground level for home, office/business space. Elizabeth Arnold.
Yes, thank you. No. Oh, yes, it is this one, just further down. Not that one then.
Can we make sure we also get the other TVs on?
It should be the one below it, yeah.
Can you get these ones on too?
Okay, so another rezone request before you for 160 East and 7200 South. This is kind of the Utah-shaped piece by Nicoletti and, now you just said it, Romani, thank you, and Fort Union. So there it is. Again, this is, as we've discussed, a concept plan. I know since this was submitted, this has already been changed. I think it's dropped in density. So they are proposing 3-story townhomes currently with some flex space on the lowest floor for office, home business there. So same rezone criteria applies. They do need to meet at least one of these in order for you all to approve a rezone. So staff did find that they meet, again, criteria 1 and 3, that 7200 in that area has changed enough that it is in the public interest to encourage redevelopment, to potentially allow for some higher density along that area. It is in the same East Gateway opportunity area that the general plan highlights. We did find that it meets land use goals number 1 and 6, so it redevelops an underutilized property and also allows for higher density housing options. The Planning Commission did recommend denial. They did not find that this request met the applicable codes and ordinances. You did also receive, same situation with the public comment. You should have everything that we received since the packets went out. So that was their recommendation. And then staff is still recommending approval of this rezone, and that is the same motion that was included in your summary report.
I have a question. I think maybe it'd be wise to ask a few of these before public comment.
Okay.
Just so they can think about it, I'm guessing that's why a lot of you have come today. So in the Unit A sections, there's just sort of rows of townhomes. And I just want to make sure I understand this. So technically, there could be right in the middle of those units a ground floor retail or business or something like that? Or is it only on one end? Because you said sort of the lower floors could have something. Is that correct? Could it be on any of them?
As I understand, it could be on any, so it is a mixed-use zone and could allow for retail on the bottom and something on top. Again, Adam or Vandaline, correct me if I get something wrong.
And this meets our parking zoning? One parking spot is what it looks like?
The concept plan has not been reviewed for parking requirements or anything. We would review that at a later date. So again, their density might change, parking requirements, landscaping, open space, all of that is contingent on a later process that would be a subdivision or a site plan or something like that.
Except for the entrance off 72nd, correct?
One more time.
Even when we get the development, they still won't have the entrance from 72nd.
Correct. That could still move. I think that would depend on, I believe it's a UDOT street, so that would depend on access. I know
No matter
Keith.
what happens with the plan, the entrance will still be off of Nicoletti.
Part of that will be mostly from the review from our city engineer. So Keith Ludwig will review the plan as part of the next formal submittal process if the rezone is requested. But they would have to meet any kind of engineering standards. So I'm not sure what that means access-wise for the project.
It's just hard for me to grasp. I get what Councilman Gettle was saying, like it's a rezone. But for me, there's a lot of things. So mixed use, I actually prefer. I don't know if these are for sale or not, but we're underserved in those areas, right? But the way that this is drawn up, it's hard for myself and everyone in here probably to see how this works with just one parking spot. And I know that they might have to change, blah, blah, blah. But I do think when we make substantial changes that maybe neighbors won't like, some of these concerns are very valid. We should probably try to be a little bit more upfront on what that could look like. Because, like I said, if someone makes a little boutique, spot in the middle of one of those units, it doesn't seem really that practical. And if there is just one parking spot, like, where are they going to park? And that's usually the biggest issue with everywhere in the city is parking. So I don't know, like for me, this would be one where I wish I could tie it to a development agreement where we could see, there's going to be 10 parking spots or 5 or something. But if this does meet our parking requirements, one spot, we need to revisit our parking requirements because that just wouldn't work. Like you're pretty much saying one person could have one visitor one time, or like a family with 3 cars could not live here. I don't think that would work, at least from my perspective.
I've got a quick question for you. Did the Planning Commission give any exact reason for the denial?
Their finding was just that they didn't think that it met ordinances and codes, but no, they didn't cite any specific sections.
Thank you.
And I believe their denial was unanimous. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
So I would like to hear what people have come to say rather than have us talk. So
I agree. Is the applicant here? And I don't know if we want to have the applicant speak first or last to address concerns.
They'll come up, if they come up first, they'll come up last as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you're coming up first, we're probably going to ask you to come up and address the concerns too. But
I can speak first, and you as the owner can speak last.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. This is the law.
Chad Jones, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time tonight. I wish I was here under different circumstances where it was a little more favorable of a situation. However, I still do feel like this is going to be something we do have the intention to improve the community, to help with the community, to not do anything that's going to hurt the neighborhood. I'm sorry for the late documentation, but since the Planning Commission, we did want to look into concerns and try to address some of the concerns that we did hear at the Planning Commission meeting. And I'd also like to clarify my understanding of the Planning Commission denial. There was one commissioner, even Commissioner Tippett, who actually said change will come, something will be developed on this area. It's just a matter of time. My understanding was more that the reason it was denied was there was some objections that got submitted the same day of the commission meeting. The city planner, Elizabeth, was out of town at the time, so they did not get into the packet. They did not feel like they had all the information as well as the legislative questions. That was my understanding of why it was denied. So just kind of going through some of these points, the intent of that first page there, this outlines the overlay zone, the purpose of the 7200 South overlay zone. We intend to meet the purpose, every single one of these points. Facilitate a buffer between single-family, mixed, commercial, and residential. Guide with high-quality environment, assuring enhanced investment of those located within the area. Promote economic development on a pedestrian scale. Protect surrounding stable neighborhoods from potential adverse effects of commercial uses. Thematic landscaping, distinctive visual quality, and pedestrian connections. We intend to meet every single one of these items. On page 2, and I'll go through these really quickly, the surrounding uses, I just wanted to show an illustration of the direction of this neighborhood and this corridor. Everything in purple on there is either already commercial, mixed use, or high density. This is the direction this is going. And we feel that our property, it does create a good buffer between the single family and the duplexes and the commercial that's happening on this corridor. As far as my knowledge goes, my understanding is that anything that has been proposed as mixed use in this corridor has not been rejected. And so it seems like this is the pattern going in this area. And I would also like to say, I know City Manager Mr. Dahl already stated it, but this is, I wanted to stress that this is a rezone only. We still would need to go through a conditional use permit, a master plan development agreement. We're completely happy to a development agreement and would have no problem looking into that. So page 3, the neighborhood engagement concerns. So we tried to make note of what we heard as concerns in the Planning Commission meeting. What you see here, this proposed 3-story townhomes, 16 units, and you can see in here that we have revised it. We've provided additional parking. We've separated the buildings to be no more than 4 units in one, so that it does create a little more separation and doesn't feel quite as massive. But this is a copy of a sign that we actually put on the property, 2 signs that we put on the property, asking people to contact us, to work with us, to help talk about what their concerns are, to help something that the community wants. To date, I have not received a single call or email. At the time of the Planning Commission meeting, any formal objection that was submitted, we have reached out to those people directly, both by phone and email, and no one has responded to us. So we are willing to work with people, and I would love to work with people. It's frustrating to me that everybody comes to the Planning Commission, to these meetings, expressing all their concerns, instead of us working together before it's presented to you. And again, I'm still open to it. So the points that we heard: traffic and speeding, pedestrian traffic, views, vandalism and appearance, and crime. So traffic and speeding, page 4, we have had a traffic study done, which is also included there, by Hells Engineering. 4 morning peak hour trips is what's expected, 8 evening peak hour trips. It's not, we heard people saying it's going to be as many as 50 to 100 cars a day in there. That's not what the traffic study has shown. We've heard requests for a traffic study, we've done it. We also anticipate, we looked, and I couldn't bring a full map, but just the nature of the neighborhood with Ramani and Nicoletti is that the majority of the traffic is going to be coming just from Fort Union Boulevard down on there. There's no, all access to commercial or anywhere else where everybody's going to go is not going to take them further into that neighborhood. They're going to come into that development, go back out to Fort Union. They're not going to be going further into there, creating more traffic. Furthermore, speeding, the distance of Romani from Nicoletti to Fort Union is only 215 feet. I don't see how traffic or speeding could be an issue with that short of a distance. If it is, we would be open to speed bumps, we'd be open to crosswalks, we'd be open to a hawk, anything that we need to help control that. Page 5, pedestrian traffic. Again, this goes back to the 7200 South overlay zone. We heard traffic, multiple concerns about traffic, people walking on sidewalks along there. You can see in here we're providing 2 additional walkway paths completely free of traffic that would pass through the property with connection to Fort Union Boulevard. Page 6, views. We heard some concerns about views. Currently, it's a masonry wall that's falling down. You do have the mountains. The look down Nicoletti Drive does look down to the mountains. We're not looking to block any of those. We're not asking for any high variance from what is allowed under the zone. We would keep it within that and do everything we could to preserve the views. Page 7, vandalism and appearance. Currently, these were pictures I took the other day. It's littered with beer cans. It's littered with garbage. Again, the masonry wall is falling. We would be doing everything we could to improve this. We would be cleaning up the neighborhood. And so you can see on page 8, just some images of what we are thinking about doing. Again, this is just rezone. It's not final. But we would be looking to clean up and improving the neighborhood. And then lastly, crime. One of the studies that was cited in the Planning Commission meeting was based on high density. What that high density was defined as was not clear. There's certain zones right here in Salt Lake City that allows up to 150 units per acre. We're not even close to that. And the research that we found on this shows that this type of project will actually reduce crime. And there was statistics also submitted about an increase in crime. We feel that this project would help to reduce crime. Studies have shown that renovating vacant lots, underutilized lots, significantly reduces crime. One study, that second quote there, mixed use versus commercial actually also reduces crime by having residential in there. So again, I'm sure there's going to be lots of comments contradicting or still not happy. And again, we are completely open to listening and working together. But again, I feel like this falls in line with the general plan, follows the precedents of what's already going on in the corridor, and will improve the neighborhood. Thanks for your time.
Before you go, are there
Yes.
any questions?
I have a question about this study.
Okay.
Okay. I would bet a lot of money that a 16-unit, 2-car garage will see more than 3 cars leave in peak hours. Like, do you honestly think that's accurate?
I am not a traffic engineer. Right. I do have to trust.
Well, I mean, 32 cars. You think 32 people aren't working that day? I mean, 27 people. It's hard when you come here with this, when people are going to be worried and upset, and you're trying to build trust, and you're like, hey, look, traffic study said 3 cars are going to leave. Like, everyone with common sense knows that that's not accurate, right? It's not a walking distance to other modes of transportation. They could take tracks, but they'll drive, right? So, which is fine. Like, I don't mind that. But they'll get in their car and drive down 72nd to get to tracks, right? But that's still leaving, right? So to come here and say 3 cars will go out, I don't think anybody in this room believes that. I don't even know if Hales Engineering would believe that, right? Because, I live by a bunch of townhomes that's like 12 units with 2, and most of them have 3 cars, so they park, and they have normal jobs, and they have to leave and come out. And if there's any sort of commercial, it's going to add to that. So I think I'm a little skeptical on that study, I don't know how we sort of address that, to rectify it with why people are worried.
I can understand that. Again, I am not a traffic engineer. I do have to hire or trust the expertise. It is something we can address with them. It is 4 morning peak hours, 8 evening peak hour trips. So they are looking at the peak hours.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions was the flex space or the retail space. We are planning to have, again, this is going way beyond just the rezone, but with the design that we're thinking, we are planning to have a flex workspace in each individual unit to give the option for live work space. Me personally, since COVID has started, I drive much less. I work from home now. There's a lot of people who now do work from home, and so we want to provide that opportunity, which will reduce the traffic. And I don't know if Hales Engineering took that into account, but
yeah, and I would love that, right, to reduce that, but it's hard for me to think that, because it's 4, but it says 3 out, 1 in, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't think that that's going to be the outcome.
I can understand that.
I got a question. The ingress and egress is Romani and Nicoletti, right? And then you've got, looks like the dumpster, is that right? Going to be bordering up against Fort Union Boulevard, is that where it's at?
That's right.
The beige area.
Yes.
Have you approached UDOT about having an ingress and egress right there?
We have, and they said it's too close to the intersection of Romani, and so they would have to be emergency egress only.
Because I know you said that, you're not aware of any mixed use proposal that's come up there on 7200 be denied, but we did have one on 9th East that was an issue where they wanted to put in some units and they wanted to go into the neighborhood like this, and we denied because they wanted to push it onto 9th East. And we heard the same thing. It's pretty close to a light, and you know, it was, UDOT said no at first, and then we denied it, and lo and behold, they came back, and their next proposal was they could go out onto 900 East. So, I know that.
I would prefer to be able to access on Fort Union, honestly. And if we could do that, I would absolutely do that.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this, there is a concern with the traffic issues, right? The parking, I share that. If there's not enough parking in that complex, Nicoletti's gonna turn into a parking lot, which causes problem in the winter, because they can't park there during a snowstorm, so that's creating issues. And we see that in other places around the city. You know, if you've got the mixed use, again, I'm not opposed, and I see that, the mixed use along 7200, but if there's not access on Fort Union Boulevard, I don't, people want to access it there. And even though it's not very much of a drive to come on Romani to Nicoletti, I think it's just that little bit is going to devalue the commercial aspect of it.
Right.
So.
Well, and I feel like the estimation, the anticipated 95% of the traffic is gonna access it through Romani. I feel like that's short-sighted. That's saying that everybody's going to be coming from the north when anybody that's coming up State Street is gonna go to Nicoletti and come right up that road. Or to, I'm gonna say it wrong and I'm sorry guys, but Romani. They already have a ton of speed bumps there, so they've already had some speeding issues, and I feel like we're just adding to it with having that access coming off Nicoletti.
Yeah, and again, I get that, and we can look into that further. I'm just going off the traffic engineer's recommendations.
And I will say, just, you know, as someone who does live in a very densely populated part of Midvale, I've not personally seen any issues with too many cars leaving at the same time of the day. And that's in a place that has 600 units or more. However, parking is a huge issue in, you know, in the Bingham Junction area, the Jordan Bluffs area, you know, so I have concerns about parking. I don't necessarily disagree with the traffic study. 4 trips does seem a little bit low, but, you know, if there's 16 units and, you know, I know plenty of people who, you know, either themselves or they and their spouse or partner, they're both working from home now, so they don't leave during the day. I'm one of those people, you know. I hang out with my dog all day and work, so it's a different, you know, it's a different atmosphere that we're living in. But that being said, that's why I think in my community, we see a lot of people just parked all day because they don't have to go anywhere to work. So you just, there's more cars around. So you're going to have to address that if we do the rezone. And it sounds like you're perfectly willing to do that. So yes. I would caution, you know, some of the community members who might have that concern of too many cars leaving at some time. We have much denser areas in Midvale with more people, and we don't have that problem as I see it anyway. Whereas, you know, a lot of the developments that we've had, that's been a concern. You know, everyone has said it's going to be too much traffic on 7th West, and we haven't seen that yet, you know, to be just being completely honest. So.
Yeah, I wish we could just get it out on the Fort Union. I'd feel a lot more comfortable with it if we could.
Yeah.
Just because then they wouldn't see, even if all 32 people, you know, turned right, opposed to turning onto Nicoletti first and then
I agree.
Romani. Is that something that the city can talk to UDOT about?
Yeah, we could definitely follow up on that. I have a little bit of confusion on the UDOT part of it. I think I can see it's something I can get into a little bit more. But yes, we can definitely work onto it, look into it. The reason is that I was under the impression that the UDOT control ended before then, and so I believe that that's what they're saying, but I'm not sure if there might be some confusion about that, so it is something that we can look into.
Okay. So, wait, Claire, now you confused me on that. You're saying UDOT's control ended before that one? So who, is it the city that we?
It should be the city, but maybe there's some reason that UDOT's weighing in that I'm just not aware of, but that part is city, unless I'm wrong.
I think cities, yeah.
Yeah, city is east.
State west is UDOT.
Yeah. But there are
so east is us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
East of.
But our engineer could come to the same, could come to the conclusion that they're too close, which I get. But yeah, it's interesting because even 5 or 6 cars build up on like a Romani is more noticeable than probably people think, right? More than, you know, a big complex that could have 50 or whatever trying to leave within a 2-hour period, which still would spread out pretty well. But, you know, some mornings, like I said, I have a 12 unit, and if 4 of them leave, their entrance is a lot closer. It backs up weirdly pretty far down Roosevelt.
Yeah.
So it's a weird issue that could be alleviated if we could get onto Fort Union. You know?
I agree with what's been said. I'm just going to add, and I think this has been covered as well, but I know personally Fort Union seeming the best route, even Romani feels better to me than I went by the site on Saturday, and there was somebody was holding a yard sale right there on Nicoletti where that entrance would come out, and just that alone was so skinny, that portion of the road, and that's where I have concerns about that. The other thing, and this was also mentioned, but just sitting there for a few minutes on Romani, a majority of that traffic that came through was coming from the south. They were not coming off of Fort Union. So I do think that addressing those concerns would be necessary.
Yeah.
Should we hear from them?
Yes.
Let's hear from them.
Thank you for your time. And
Really
again,
appreciate it.
we are completely open to working together with the city and the neighborhood to do what we can.
Thank you.
And I'm also the applicant. I prepared words. Would you like to hear from me? And I'm happy to hold off if there's.
You might want to wait.
You want to wait because you'll probably
We'll ask you to
address.
address the concerns that are raised. You get your second bite of the apple right now.
All right, we're going to open it up to public comment. Again, everybody has 3 minutes. We hope that this is enough time for you to tell us your views on this project. We're also making sure we can get through everybody and get out of here at a reasonable time. The cards I was given, they were all marked as not wanting to speak, so I won't be calling on any of them. And just as a reminder, as you come up, please state your name.
And also while they're coming up, there have been many emails on this particular project that have been sent both directly to council or, if provided to the city, forwarded on. And so I just wanted to make sure that it's just clear that the public comment tonight we know is not the only public comment, and that we've received a lot more emails as well.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Sherwood. I reside at 105 East Nicoletti. Thank you for taking time to hear my comments this evening. I would first respectfully ask that I be given the same allotment of time as the applicant was given, which was over 8 minutes, but I have a prepared statement, so I believe I can come in much under that. I would ask that you continue to support the denial provided by the Zoning Commission. For these reasons, the statement from the zoning office indicated that the subject property around it had changed rapidly and extensively. That entire statement, in my opinion, is not founded in truth. The only major redevelopment in the area was the building of the Ganesh Center, and to me that does not by any means meet a constitution of rapid, dramatic change in the area. Further, it states that it supports goal 1 of being in an opportunity zone, which indicates that it is carefully planned, designed to integrate into the fabric of the area, minimize impact on adjacent and nearby existing land uses. As you can see from the comments that you received that were forwarded from the Zoning Commission, the multitude of emails that were included in your packet, and the packet of additional comments that you received this evening, I think it's clear to say that the immediate people impacted in this area don't believe that this actually would integrate into the fabric of our community. The further zoning objective that the office states that it meets is higher density to access tracks. Tracks is over 3/4 of a mile from the subject property and is a minimum of a 15 to 20-minute walk, crossing major intersections including State Street, which I, as a 40-year-old active woman, would never consider doing. Finally, it states that it will provide flex space, ground level for home office business use. I may be incorrect in the plans that I have reviewed, but really what this developer is proposing is a ground floor garage with a bonus space behind it, which we could call for an office. Well, quite frankly, if I was a CPA, I could have a home business, and as long as I didn't let customers through my front door, I don't need to rezone my property. I don't further believe that simple bonus space in a unit should constitute as business use or commercial space. If the council does wish to consider rezoning, at a minimum, I would request that this be tabled for further study. Well, the developer claims that a traffic study has been completed. His study does not account for current traffic in that area. And that is really the impact, is what's going to be added to the already busy traffic in that street. So he can state, which has already been questioned by Councilman Brown, how valid those additional trips would be, but it does not account for the current usage in that area on both Nicoletti and Romani. There's concerns that were noted about a noise impact, and I have some major concerns about utilities. I've consulted with a friend of mine who operates in a public utility where I used to live, and he did confirm to me that, especially with antiquated infrastructure, that upstream and downstream additional burdens can cause infrastructure that can impact homeowners. I'm almost finished.
Thank you.
Finally, and I really would like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking time to go inspect the property. I think that's very insightful of you. But with this, I think it's important that you recognize that there's an additional residential lot at 150 East Nicoletti that is not part of any of these requests. It's my opinion that a comprehensive plan for this entire area is a more appropriate approach to land use and land use opportunity. Piecemealing these lots for individual use may not be the best answer for the city or the neighborhood. I'd like to finally acknowledge that it is an important area of opportunity for development, and I think all of us neighbors acknowledge that this will be redeveloped. But the purpose of city planning is just that, to plan thoughtfully about what might best benefit the area and our neighborhood, and it is not this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a couple of follow-up questions. Can I ask that, Mayor?
Of course.
One, so you heard us talking with the applicant about potential access onto 7200 rather than Nicoletti. I mean, does that change your position at all if the ingress and egress is onto 7200 rather than onto Nicoletti?
My opinion would only change as long as Nicoletti was not accessed at all, and that would not meet fire code. Fire code does not allow for a fire truck or any rescue vehicles to require backing up.
So you wouldn't be okay if there was just if
the only access was on 72, I would be less concerned.
If it was just fire truck or ambulance that could enter on Nicoletti, right? Is that what you're saying?
I would be much less concerned.
Okay.
But not completely eliminated.
Right. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a gate or something. Okay, the second thing was utilities, and I think you sent an email in too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know the utilities that you brought in were water and sewer. And I get some of that. In this area, that's Mid-Valley improvement, right?
Yes.
For sewer.
Yep.
So, and water, I mean, I don't know what our water line is right there. I assume it has capacity or not, do you know? So I see that, and they'd have to put in new lines. Mid-Valley Improvement just put in a big line improvement on 7200. And, the interesting thing about sewer, and Glenn, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I was chairman of that committee, your organization for a few years. And with sewer, when you get that bigger line, you actually want more of a flow going through, because otherwise the fumes of that lovely, stuff in there decays it quicker. So you want higher flow going through some of those lines to preserve it longer. So they've already improved, knowing there was going to be redevelopment in that area, right? Did I say that?
Yeah, there will not be effects on it.
Okay.
It's probably the simplest.
And can I bill you if I have to dig out my front yard? Because that's what's been happening quite a lot in our neighborhood.
Water service lines? Is that the issue?
Whatever they are, which I realize the city's not responsible for what leaves, after the city, but I actually used to be a mayor of a town that ran their own public utilities, and I can confirm that any increase of utilization will have a negative impact on existing infrastructure, and at least 5 homes in our immediate neighborhood in the last year and a half have had to dig up their front yards. And so I'm sorry, it can have a detrimental impact on the existing infrastructure, and that is extremely expensive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The answer is no, you cannot build the land. The Utah law is clear, homeowners are responsible for the lateral line.
I'm Tanya Lilanu. I live on 95 Nicoletti. I've been there for 11 years. When I moved in, I was a single mom with 2 little girls. And even at that point, I would not let my children play in our front yard. There's no way. People drive down, speed down that road like bats out of hell. They're turning off of State Street onto there with no concern for the neighborhood. With all respect to Mr. Jones, thinking that people aren't going to speed down Romney is ridiculous. They already do that. We already have speed bumps there that do not deter speeding. And I just, with what you were saying, Councilman Gettle, already in the mornings, 3 or 4 cars trying to turn onto State Street from Nicoletti takes 10 minutes. You know, so now I have to go to Romney to turn left onto 72 to get to State Street or to get to the freeway. And now you want to put more traffic there. It's just going to back up even more. I mean, it's a very, very small street, as Mayor Stevenson saw. And so when you have 4 or 5 cars, it might not sound like a lot, but it creates a huge impact to the existing neighborhood. I am not opposed to change. I would love to see development in our area. We would love to see commercial, coffee shops, something, but what they're proposing is not that. They're saying it's mixed use, they're saying it's businesses, but it's not. It's just homes with an extra room that doesn't have a window, so it doesn't have to meet the bedroom code. I also want to address the fact that for the first 8 years that I lived in the house, I took tracks. I worked downtown, and never once did I walk. Once, because someone forgot to pick me up from tracks, because we shared a car. So people who are going to be using tracks, like, I don't know who mentioned it, they're going to be taking their cars and parking, and it's not going to have an impact on pollution. It's not going to have an impact on traffic. In addition to that, the east side of Nicoletti has no sidewalks. So people who do walk are walking down the middle of the street. And now we're going to add more cars and more traffic and risk more people getting injured. That is all I had to say. Thank you.
So much.
I'm going to probably ask everyone this just so I can get a gauge, following up from what Councilmember Sperry said. If the access was on 7200, do you feel differently about it?
So you're saying flip it so that the main access is 7200 and only fire trucks? I would be less concerned. But again, I don't love the high density housing, you know, pretending to be mixed use. It is what it is. It's high density housing. It's not mixed use.
Really quickly, and I apologize I didn't ask this for the last speaker, because this is something I'm interested in, is it is your neighborhood, and if there is an ideal that you know, sounds like there's kind of agreement that eventually this will be redeveloped in some way, if you have preferences on what you would like to see there living in that area.
Yeah, I would love to see coffee shops, small boutique businesses, maybe a handful of housing, but not 17 units. You know, upgraded single family homes, sorry. That would be much more ideal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Gary Garcia. I live at 7360 Romani Avenue. I've lived in that neighborhood since I was 5 years old. I watched it grow. I lived on Greenwood Avenue until I was about 24 when I got married. Then I moved for a few years, and then I bought a house on Romani Drive. I used to play in that house with my friends. And I basically watched that neighborhood grow. When we, as a neighborhood, as Romani Drive, the traffic was bad. And it's not because they come and go from over there. It's because it's the only thorough way that people pass the traffic, except on 5th East. But the people won't use it because they got to zigzag through the neighborhood to get to 72. My street is all night, all day. That's why we wanted speed bumps. 2, on the water issue, we did get a new water system in about 5 years ago. The water pump is on Carroll Street towards the end. I don't know what the water pressure will take off of that pump. You guys need to investigate that too, because he did put new water lines. They're 6 inches. And we put some more, you guys put some more fire hydrants in too, because there's a new one right across the street from my house, because I got one on each corner. I live in a corner house. Also, on Nicoletti, if you're driving a full-size truck, you ain't gonna get through there when another car's coming. You gotta pull to the side so they can get through. That road's barely a little bit bigger than the road on the avenues. It can't handle that kind of traffic. There's no way. And Romani, they're not just gonna go that and turn and go and get off on 72. They're gonna go to 72 and go down to 7500. The gas station's right there. The medical center's there if they need to go to the medical center. But that's what most people do, is they cut across Romani so they don't deal with the traffic that's on State Street because it's gotten so bad. Also, with the apartments, I was in the apartment business for 15 years. I did the maintenance. I ran for Wasatch Properties, all their maintenance departments all over the country. There's issues with that, with the people and their houses, because of garbage, for one, because the parking lots, people don't care. They throw their crap out in the thing, expect the groundskeepers to come pick it up. Wind blows, it goes in people's yards. I get those complaints all the time. I work at Sportsman's Warehouse now. I deal with the apartment complex there. The groundspeople there are there every day picking garbage up, bottles, beer cans, everything else from the people that live in those apartments. Also, I was the neighborhood watch captain of Romani on the west side of the street and part of Nicoletti and part of Maria for about 10 years before Unified took over. We were a pretty close neighborhood then. We pretty still are. And this guy's talking about this wall that's all ratted and everything else and garbage everywhere. It wasn't before. We don't know what's going to happen to it. It used to get graffitied every other week, that wall. Us as neighbors would go and paint it, kept it up, so our neighborhood didn't look like crap. So I don't know what sense this thing is to put this in our neighborhood. We need something that is for us. This guy told me last time at the meeting, he told us that it was for our neighborhood. He would do it for us. He's not doing nothing for us but bring more traffic, more garbage, more criminal stuff. Nothing good for the neighborhood. None of us want it there. We would rather have something small businesses, or something that the neighborhood could use, even a small park that the kids can play in.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Linda Pepper, and I live on 104 Nicoletti. And the concern, of course, is the coming out of those complexes on Nicoletti, because it really is a small street. It's not like when Councilman Gettle says, you know, that it's in his situation, our street is much smaller than like 700 West and things like that. Then my other concern is I don't know how many. I'm wondering about the guest and visitor parking for the occupants of the things. I don't know how theirs is arranged, but a lot of those don't even, you go directly into a garage, so there's no drives for anyone to park on, and we can't have any more parking on the streets. It's just really congested when you have, and people do park on the sides of the street, but that street you can't get, sometimes it's a little hazardous if another car is coming off of Romani on Nicoletti trying to pass when people are parked. So that's a real concern to me. It's just the egress out of the complex on Nicoletti is really concerning. Thank you.
So just,
Pardon me?
I think we got what you're saying, but just so we ask the same question. So if the access is on a 7200, I mean, you're not, that's your main concern is the access on the Nicoletti.
That is my main concern, the traffic and and maybe people parking on the streets and things. That's my real big concern. And again, like the others expressed, it would be less of a concern if it did go off of onto 7200, but the high rise, the 3-story is a little bothersome as well. I'm really opposed to that, but change is hard, so I understand that. I've lived there for nearly 60 years, and so it's really hard to see change, but I realize that does happen. But I'm not very much in favor of the 3-story complexes, so.
Can I ask a real quick question? Just,
Oh, sure.
I'm trying to go off memory. Isn't the planned exit of that facility, isn't there a duplex with a driveway right there just opposite where they are? And
Yeah.
Nicoletti is quite small, but
It
there's
is,
also
yes, right
two
across
driveways
the
right there,
street.
right?
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a duplex right here and this as well. And right there.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Wanted to thank you guys for being here, and thank you for what you guys do for our community. We're excited to see all the redevelopment and
Really,
things.
sorry, can you just state your name?
Oh, yes, totally forgot. I'm Weston Price with Inca Properties. We own the duplex on 152 Nicoletti Drive, and which is right in front of the Egress Ingress entrance that's proposed for this. And just had a little bit of concerns for it. We were excited because it'll look nicer than just a wall, but that's a lot of traffic that'll be in front of our tenants' unit, and there's like windows right in front. And so imagine in the nighttime, someone's trying to sleep, cars coming right out of the proposed place, straight looking into the windows. And so that's a concern that I wanted to bring up. I know that Councilman Sperry wanted to give kudos to him for addressing that as well. And wanted to see, if we could get that entrance on 72 Fort Union, which is better and easier for everybody. And so, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Weston.
you.
You preempted our question, though, so.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to give public comment on this item?
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
So we still want the applicant, but he can come up after the public hearing is closed, so I second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, motion passes. Public comment is closed. You can step up now.
Hear from the,
Perfect.
I guess he's not the applicant, he's the landowner, right? Chris was the applicant.
All right. Good evening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present my case for the proposed rezone of my property at 160 East Fort Union Boulevard. The subject property is currently zoned single-family with a duplex overlay and is within both the 7200 South overlay zone and 2 of the general plan's opportunity areas.
Okay, I gotta interrupt you as you take a breath. Will you give us your name?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Mark Leonardo. My rezone request meets the city's standards for a rezone and is beneficial to the community for 4 main reasons. 1, the property's current zoning and land use is outdated. 2, the proposed zone change better conforms to the city's stated goals and objectives. 3, we are in an unprecedented housing crisis, and my proposal will bring much-needed housing supply. 4, my proposed land use has a smaller impact on the surrounding neighborhood than other potential commercial redevelopment uses. Reason number 1, the property's current zoning and land use is outdated. A rezone is required to bring my property into conformity with the 7200 South/Fort Union Boulevard corridor. Please refer to the map in the supplemental information packet we have prepared. As you can see by the large swath of purple areas on the map, my underutilized 0.83 acre single family lot stands out in stark contrast to the surrounding commercial and multifamily residential uses. A direct quote from Midvale City staff report sums up the need for a rezone perfectly. The area around the subject property has changed rapidly and extensively. The proposed rezone to mixed use would be consistent and compatible with the emerging character of the neighborhood area. I propose that it is uncontroversial to claim that a large, underutilized horse property lot along Fort Union Boulevard near State Street no longer conforms to the character of the surrounding corridor or the city's stated goals for the area. Reason number 2, my proposed zone change better conforms to the city's stated goals and objectives. A rezone to mixed use would better align the subject property zoning with the community's goals outlined in the general plan and the 7200 South overlay zoning text. Please allow me to read directly from the purpose statement of the 7200 South overlay zoning text. I directly quote section 17-7-6.1 of the code. Quote, purpose. This chapter supplements the mixed use zone, chapter 17-7-5, to provide additional standards for the development of land parcels within the 7200 South overlay zone. The goal is to A, facilitate transition of 7200 South corridor from single-family residential neighborhood to a mix of commercial and residential uses. You can read the rest of the chapter's goals in the packet we've created. I would like to highlight that the 7200 South Overlay Zoning Code directly refers to the mixed-use zone as a reference zone. Our proposal meets all of the objectives listed in the purpose statement of the overlay zone. The subject property additionally falls into 2 of the general plan's opportunity areas, the East Gateway Opportunity Area as well as the 7200 South Opportunity Area. I quote directly from the general plan, quote, the general plan identifies 9 opportunity areas in the city where transportation and other infrastructure is present and where higher value land uses would be beneficial. Changes in the types and/or intensities of current land uses are anticipated. In these areas, denser residential uses, mixed residential, and commercial uses, and larger, taller buildings are anticipated. The city has identified key geographic areas that are ideal for redevelopment and will accommodate the future growth of Midvale. My property falls into 2 of the highlighted opportunity areas. There is ample precedence for my requested rezone which aligns with the city's vision for the area. 23 other parcels along Fort Union Boulevard in the same 7200 South overlay zone from 150 East to 700 East have previously been rezoned to mixed use. All of the 23 mixed use zone parcels are also located along Fort Union Boulevard and are located within a mile of the subject property. Additionally, 7 of the mixed use parcels are within 500 feet of the subject property. The council has never rejected a rezone request to mixed use in the 7200 South overlay zone due to the zone's clear alignment with the city's objectives for the area. If mixed use zoning has been deemed appropriate for all 23 nearby comparable parcels along Fort Union Boulevard, the question is, why not my property? Reason number 3, we are in an unprecedented housing crisis and my proposal will bring much needed supply. It is very important to view my rezone request in the context of the unprecedented housing crisis that continues to plague our community. Housing prices are ultimately the product of supply and demand. Our housing market faces an abundance of demand, but has failed to keep pace with commensurate supply. The University of Utah's Kem Gardner Policy Institute estimates that we have underbuilt the housing supply by greater than 50,000 units. The supply and demand imbalance has resulted in out-of-control housing prices. The housing economist Jim Wood found that, quote, the income required to buy a median-priced home in Salt Lake County has increased from $58,100 in 2015 to a staggering $101,400 in 2021. Over the past 5 years, the Salt Lake metropolitan area has increased in price by 84.6%, second highest in the entire nation. Cities along the Wasatch Front have felt the burden of the national housing crisis more than other cities across the nation for two reasons: large population growth and limited developable land. The Census Bureau estimates that from 2010 to 2020, Utah's population grew by 18.4%, number one in the nation. Our strong population growth is forecasted to continue. The Census Bureau estimates that the population along the Wasatch Front will grow by 1.7 million people by 2060. Midvale's former planning director, Alex Murphy, was quoted in the City Journal's newspaper saying, quote, "We just don't have a lot of space left in the city. We anticipate over the next 20 to 30 years, we'll need about 10,000 more housing units across the city. The Wasatch Front is land constrained by our mountain ranges and prominent lakes. These limiting geographic constraints make infill redevelopment projects crucial in our fight against the affordable housing crisis. Our housing affordability crisis is bad and on a path to worsen unless more redevelopment projects are brought to market. My proposed infill redevelopment project would bring 16 for-sale townhomes to a market in need of supply. This would represent a small, incremental step we can take to mitigate the housing crisis. 4, my proposed land use has a smaller impact on the surrounding neighborhood than other potential commercial redevelopment uses. I've heard other people say, that what was mentioned was this could be a commercial redevelopment spot for a coffee shop or a restaurant or potentially a medical office. If the primary concern with this site is traffic impact on the surrounding neighborhood, the traffic impact of those proposed uses are many times greater than my proposed use. And so if traffic is the concern, then the proposed townhome use is a better option than what has been proposed. And, I'm going off script here, but I don't deny that good points haven't been raised and that site plan needs to be cleaned up and that additional parking needs to be added. And certainly we will push as hard as possible to get entrance off of 7200 South. So changes can be made to the proposed concept plan. We can work with the community to find something that works so people aren't negatively impacted, so we can balance the interests of not making an impact on the surrounding neighborhood, but also addressing the housing crisis and letting new families have a shot at home ownership. So in summary, there are important redevelopment projects which align with city goals and serve the general public's best interest that are unpopular at city council meetings. The optics of these meetings can be deceiving. There is a divergent incentive structure at the beginning stages of a development. Those who are against the development are most incentivized to speak out against a project in its infancy, while community stakeholders who will eventually benefit from the project are unaware the proposal even exists. We may have concerned citizens here tonight who are averse to this change happening in their neighborhood. That does not mean that this rezone is bad for the local neighborhood or that the rezone does not serve the greater public good. Remember, the 16 families who finally get their chance at the American dream of home ownership are not able to voice their support here tonight, but they do exist, and this vote matters to them greatly as well. As council members, you are tasked with the unenviable job of making a decision in which you are certain to leave some parties disappointed in you. I ask you to begin your decision-making process from first principles and ask yourself, have I demonstrated that the property's current zoning is outdated and not compatible with the rapidly evolving 7200 South corridor? Yes. Please reference the provided map of adjacent property uses. 2, is the proposed rezone compatible with the objectives of the 7200 South overlay and general plan? Yes, there is ample precedence to support the rezone and no precedence to reject it. 3, are we in a housing crisis and would building these townhomes serve the public good? Yes, the project brings much needed housing supply to a community in great need. 4, the proposed use has a smaller impact on the surrounding neighborhood than other potential commercial uses. I am grateful for your commitment to our community and I appreciate your time and consideration this evening. I encourage you to approve my rezone request so that we can continue the process of working together to bring a much needed townhome community to our city. Thank you for your time and God bless.
Questions?
I've got one question, which may lead to more. So you very well researched on a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
23 projects along 7200 South, for mixed use. How many of those push the traffic onto a side street and not 7200?
I do not know that off the top of my head, but I can research that and
Well,
get back to you.
I mean, to me, that's a distinguishing factor, right? Is because we're not necessarily opposed to a lot of them. We have approved some of those. I think there is one that we did approve where it went through, but they also had an easement from a neighboring business, right? So there is one of those a little further east, although it was a smaller project. I don't remember how many units it was.
It was 12.
So, but I know they did get an easement from a neighboring landowner. But that's one of the things that I see as distinguishing is because, I mean, we've heard it. That's the biggest concern is the traffic issue. Somebody that submitted public comment, I don't remember who it was, but they were saying, imagine if this was you living by there, would you allow this? Well, Councilmember Brown lives by one that's like, I'm right on the board of the approved project. Homes that we, and so I'm not going to say how we, but we understand because we have projects right by us. 6 houses down. Yours is, how far away are you from that?
Probably about 8.
What this is.
You have a tough job and you have to balance, right? Because you have the impact of the and infill and family. That pain is also felt. And so some the proposed use burdensome and impact on the like I said, parking needs to be added. This meeting, the reason, right? And how I think simply, I don't know if we can, but swap multi to me is what has been called out in the overlay zone. And this meeting, I think we've made it. Now, let us continue the work, increase the park, so that overly burdensome to the zone. I thought that was the
lots of first speaking from a citizen, a town I wish would have put in a coffee shop. I understand that could bring more traffic, but could go. So it's a little, maybe they would. This is them and they want to make an. So I would just be. People are kind of they what they're saying is something for us too, right? If it's going to be a drastic benefit us, so where that comes from.
Yeah.
I probably guess that all of council, that 4-point stage that you sort of gave me as my guide to making a decision is something I take seriously on every decision, right? Like this isn't the first time I've looked at this, and I've spent a lot of time and energy reading these and looking at them. Some of us have gone to the site, so I don't know. if that, I'm trying not to be insulted by that. Like you trying to say like, hey, I'm telling you why you need to vote yes on this. You should think about all these things. Like I do think about all those things, you know, and I put a lot of time and energy, and this job is really, really hard. And so I'm not sure that, I guess I'll give you the benefit of the doubt this time, but I would recommend maybe not coming here and telling me, follow these 4 bullet points, because it doesn't really work for me.
Okay, well, I apologize if you were offended. I certainly did not intend that to be offensive, and I hope it wasn't taken that way. I was just trying to lay out my case and saying, here's the framework I follow to come to my decision. That's what I'm putting forth.
And I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, no, and I mean that sincerely, and I do apologize sincerely. That is absolutely not my objective, certainly. And for what it's worth, this is my first ever meeting at one of these, so I'm not a developer, and so I'm not sure the decorum to follow. You know, I just said, how would I would write it like I would write an essay. So if you would give me the benefit of the doubt, that would be appreciated. So thank you for your understanding.
I appreciate the way that you laid that out, so I'll differ from my esteemed colleague, Councilmember Brown. You know, I don't think you were speaking just to us, but for, you know, general education for anyone who might be paying attention as well. I feel like you did lay out the reasons why I mentioned earlier in the meeting, like we're here to consider a rezone request. We're not here to consider a 16 townhome development plan. If it were, you know, I'd probably join those who don't like that particular plan. And, you know, that's why we kind of hold those two things separately. Yeah. So, you know, thank you for the information you laid out to us. Although it wasn't, as Councilmember Brown said, it wasn't any eye-opening information for us up here. Like, yes, that is what we consider, but it might have helped those in the audience and those who are watching, who obviously there is some confusion as to what we came here tonight to decide. We didn't come here to, you know, say start building 17 townhomes tomorrow. So again, thanks for making that distinction.
Well, thank you for that. And again, I do apologize, and that was not my intent at all. So I sincerely apologize.
Yeah. Okay. No problem.
Thank you.
He's okay. I've said worse things to him, and we're still friends.
Okay.
So,
yeah, no.
Colleagues.
Okay.
Esteemed.
Our friendship just went down.
Yeah.
That means I can say worse things to him. No, I'm just kidding. We get along great. He's on the council because I voted yes for that development by him, and he didn't like it.
True statement.
That is very true. That is true. You know, I look at this, and I mean, you pointed out those things that we consider, and there's lots of factors that we can consider in this legislative process of it for the rezone. You know, for me, the access, ingress and egress, that's a material thing because of the traffic, and Nicoletti is narrow. You know, the parking, if there's a lot of parking there, because if the ingress and egress is on Nicoletti and there's not enough parking, the occupants are going to be parking on Nicoletti, right? Which to me is causing some safety issues with snowplow. So that's a material thing for me. So I would like to know, one, on the access issue. Two, I mean, it's a townhome development. You're going to have an HOA, right? HOAs, even though that's a public street on Nicoletti, in their recorded covenants, you can put in some parking restrictions even for the public street. So, I mean, if there's going to be one, and I don't know if we have to, this is one of those, if we were getting down that road for a development agreement, to have a condition in there that the residents in that, you know, I would like to see in the covenants, they cannot be parking on Nicoletti.
Sounds very
other
fair.
people from
Sounds
the public
very fair
can,
to me.
and in that way, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know how we put a provision in there just so after you turn it over to them, they're not going and amending that out. Whether it's, if they're going to amend that provision, the city has to approve it, even though I know we hate that. And I've had to deal with it for developers getting city approval, and it's a pain, right? I represent developers, so I get it. But that's something we could do to protect the neighborhood. If, you know, especially if the ingress and egress is going on to 7200, people can still park because you'd walk in and out, even if it's fire access. But then that helps minimize the impact onto that neighborhood. So that's something I'd like to see. But for me, I want to get, hear from Keith or something on that ingress or egress before we made a final decision, because that's an important thing for me.
Can you park on 7200? Do you know? Or is that blocked? I mean, I wouldn't recommend it by any stretch of the imagination, but
You probably can, and the UPD will ticket it and tow it. I don't know. But you can.
I mean, I'm good with that too.
So based on some of the concerns that were brought up to us, traffic, parking, being some of those, you've touched on those a little bit. One of, and I know this doesn't quite go into just rezone on its own, but can you, or one of you, explain the intent around how you've designed that mixed use into this current proposal and how you see
Yeah,
how that
and
mixed use
Chad,
would
you
work?
may be better suited, but I think part of it is just, we think it's a product that fits the post-COVID world, right? So a work from home space that can accommodate some like light business is a new and evolving part of our reality in post-2020. And so I've just seen other comparable developments where they include that space, and it's a big draw because so many people are working from home and they do light business activities, and so we thought it was a good fit for this climate.
Would there be a window
Yes.
there? Yeah, it
Absolutely.
probably wouldn't have like a closet or something, right? That would make it the non-bedroom.
No, yes, no closet, but a window, an office.
Yeah, office space.
Yeah, or if someone wanted to use it for a beauty salon at their house, an actual space you can work in.
I mean, that to me that's a draw. I understand that some people in the audience don't think so, and I appreciate that. But I definitely could see a lot of, especially I have 3 kids, in that scenario I could segregate myself away from the family life. So I think that's a good feature overall. But I just wanted to clarify the window situation.
Yes.
Other comments or questions from the council?
So, and Lisa or Liz, help me out here, but, so I mean, really, again, there's the option to approve it, to deny it, or it could potentially also be tabled with the instructions that we would put together a development agreement that would address some of the concerns that we have heard. And then that would have to be brought back for further consideration, if that's the route that you would want to go. Is there any other options? I mean, table it for more information without instruction to put together a development agreement. Those are the options at hand.
So
If you did go the route of saying table for a development agreement, providing some guidance and elements that you'd be interested in including in that would be useful.
Well, for me, I like tabling to find out about Keith and the access issue. I mean, I get it that we're here for the rezone request, and they can always change that, but that is, the access point is a material thing for me, because that's the main concern, is where it's pushing the traffic onto. So I'd like to get that, and I mean, some of the conditions with the development, I mentioned the parking on the CC&Rs. But
I would recommend what you're saying, Councilmember, with a development agreement as well, that we state that we want to go into a development agreement and then get some of those questions answered.
yeah, well, I mean, my only thing is, if the answer is they can't go on to 7200 South, I hate to put all the effort into a development agreement if it's going to say, if you can't access it onto 7200, then it may not get passed anyway, right? So I see if you have access onto that, let's start the development agreement, because it's probably a little bit different. If you can't have access onto that, I think we got to come back and then take a vote at that point to decide, are we going forward?
Just to raise some points here that are of concern to me is, just the previous item on our agenda was a very similar request where that doesn't have an access onto 7200 South either. And we pretty glowingly approved that particular plan, which literally touches this same lot. So I wonder if by doing that, we are placing a burden on this developer that we did not place on the previous one, who has the same. If the issue is access to 7200, they don't either, and we were perfectly
I
fine with
think the
that.
access from Romney and Nicoletti looks significantly different, though. I mean,
And the number of cars.
and the number of cars we're looking at. I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
But I mean, for me,
it's a discussion
that's a
point.
material difference between the two, is the entrance and the exit.
I mean, it is a valid point.
Yeah,
I'll give you
but
that.
if there's three total, proper homes leaving onto Nicoletti, that'd be substantially less of a burden
Right.
than
17.
Yeah, right. So that's why I don't necessarily know if I wouldn't call these similar in sort of any stretch of the imagination with that. But they are proximity next to each other.
Yeah. No, you've got the traffic where it's going. You've got the parking, because on the prior one, we already looked at it, right? They can fit more parking on there. This one.
And it's just during business hours. And change it.
I mean, this one, we've seen it in other developments, right? They have a 2-car garage, but if the driveway's not big enough, it's really 2 cars, and then they're dumping into the guest parking and the surrounding streets. I don't see that in the other one. So we've got, and that's what I see. If they're accessing onto 7200, they're less likely to come and park on Nicoletti. Still could happen, which is why we'd want that restriction, that prohibition in the CCNRs. But there is some similarities between those two projects, but I see them. I think there's more distinctions.
And the other thing, again, not to belabor this point, but we're here for a rezone, not for any discussion. I mean, we can talk about traffic going to 7200 or not, but that's not what's before us. What's before us is the rezone. And, the map that we were provided that shows all of the purple surrounding this one lot, it's, this is my, 4th, 5th year here, and I can't think of a time that we ever denied a rezone request when everything touching it was the same zone. So if we're going to have the developer work more to try to get access to 7200 and they come back and say, sorry, we did all we could, but we can't, I don't see what protection that gives us as a council to deny the rezone request, even if they weren't able to get some sort of access onto 7200.
I think it's within our right to deny a rezone, correct? Isn't that?
Well, yeah, we can. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
we can deny any. That's
Yeah.
not to say we have the legal right to do so.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. That's my concern. If they come back and say we called, everyone we could call and we tried as hard as we could and we couldn't get access to 7200, is that reason enough for us to say this rezone we're not going to approve this rezone? I mean, I know.
I'll tell you, I'm more likely to approve it if they can go on to 7200.
Yeah, and I think
can.
we all would be more likely to. That's not to say, you could get a coalition of 3 of us to say yes, even with that in place. But is it enough for us to rely on and say, that's why we denied this rezone request?
It could be.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious on the council's thoughts that if 7200 South is denied, if that access was instead on Romani and not on Nicoletti.
To me, I mean, we've done this before. We typically approve the rezone and then work with the developer and the community to get a project that fits the needs of both. As I forget which one of you said it, we do have a duty to existing residents in Midvale. We also have a duty as a council to developers who come to us with plans. And we have a duty to people who live in Midvale and who don't live in Midvale yet. That's our job. And as Councilmember Brown said, it's not easy all of the time. So I just don't see the difference between what we're asked to do tonight and what we've done many times before, and that's either approve or deny the rezone request, and then if it's approved, work with the developer to get the best project for the area. That's just how we've
Seen for me, I see this more similar to the one on 900 East that we denied for the similar reasons. It was pushing the traffic into the neighborhood. And, you know, and that was right next to a large apartment complex, and they were trying to put in a high-density residential, and then on the other side, it was single-family homes.
And that was the developer who then kind of stormed out of the meeting and said, fine, we'll just do commercial for the whole area. And I don't think that that's certainly not what a lot of, what I'm hearing anyway. People don't want that either.
The developer did storm out and say that, and then he went and put a for sale sign on the property. So he was heated in the moment, but.
Yeah. I'm just saying, those things change all the time, and just because we approve or deny something, if we approve the rezone, it doesn't mean the worst project possible is going to go there. We've done it before, like the project with Adam Nash, I forget exactly that location. He came to us with something that nobody liked except for him.
Didn't we deny it? We denied it.
We denied it,
We denied it twice.
Before.
We denied it twice. And
yeah. For
came
this
back with
same reason.
something that everyone liked. But
And for me,
So if we're going to Nash, put in single-family homes and it gets approved. That's what Adam Nash's was.
So
We're not saying that.
Yeah. So for me, the townhomes we keep speaking about by my house, there's like 12 that enter into residential, and then there's like 10 that enter into UDOT's or UTA's parking lot. It's kind of a really weird complex. Interestingly enough, everyone was sort of worried about the 3-story, and I appreciate I can't remember your name of the long-standing resident that said, change kind of happens around there. The traffic that enters into the residential neighborhood is a substantial problem. The 10 units that don't, we don't even know they exist, so to speak, other than they're our neighbors. And the 3-story, I was significantly worried about because my in-laws live next to it, and they have a pool in the backyard, and we were like, this is going to be so invasive, and it wasn't. So the issue of the entrance, though, is serious. I like the idea of 16. I guess I'm on the fence in the sense that I like 16 for sale units. I like the idea of what the project you have, but I can't comfortably say I would vote for something that entered into Nicoletti with that many, right? And I think everyone in the room sort of needs to understand that change is coming. And there's a lot of people that want to live in 3-story attached townhomes, and a lot of people that want to live in single-family homes, right? There's just a lot of underserved people, right? Now, the 3-story that was just put in by me that is for sale on, I can't remember the road, they're selling for $600,000. So I'm not really sure that it's, affordable, but that also usually brings about, people are always worried like it's gonna be this low end product or whatever, and a $600,000 townhome is typically not a low end product. I can't afford that, So, for me, I feel comfortable saying it has to enter into 7200, at least the way that you have this positioned and programmed or whatever. So I don't mind the idea of finding out, like Council Member Sperry said, if it can work, and then having a development agreement. If it works, then having something with a development agreement. And I don't know if everyone will vote that way or not, but that's I don't think that's a bad way to go about it.
That's the direction I would like to go, to find out if we can get the entrance on 72nd, and then if that's the case, then go with the development agreement.
just one quick question for me. Wasn't that already addressed by the developer? Didn't you say that you had attempted to, and they said it was too close to the remedy? Yeah.
I think that's where it was UDOT, and then Matt clarified that's probably city and not.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, from my experience with UDOT, within 350 feet of an intersection, they will not allow it. And so I did talk to him about another one. My understanding was this was UDOT controlled. If it's not, we may be able to get another answer. Or UDOT may, I don't know, depending on who we talk to. It's definitely worth looking into.
Just tell them only 3 cars leave in the morning. That's all you need to tell them. That's no problem at all. Give them this exact study to show that it's fine, and you'll be good.
I think UDOT said, I think their traffic study said only like 16 new cars go to the new high school's entrance. And I was on the phone with them and told them their traffic study was terrible. They didn't believe me. And now that we have photos of the stacked cars.
Yeah.
I think there's a general idea of how the council's feeling. I'm wondering if there's a motion.
Well, I think one thing, if we're going to continue it, I mean, I know that one option is just table without date, but they probably want it with a certain date. How long does it take Keith to look into something like that?
I would, Nate?
I think we can look into that and have an answer.
Well, one, verify it's us and not UDOT, right? And then two, if it is us.
We make a decision.
We don't even know which roads are ours.
Well,
How awesome
I mean,
are we?
we guarantee you that it is a Midvale street. What I'm not sure of is if there is some other.
If UDOT has
regulation
some
I'm not
agreement,
aware- Yeah.
because it's at 7,200, okay. Well, let me ask, did you want it with continued with a date certain, or if we left it open, just a table, and once we get the answers, staff puts it back on the calendar?
Do we have to renotice that too? That's a good question.
I mean, I hate to give it with a
would
certain
have to
date,
renotice
and then we don't have the answer, and we're just going through this dog and pony show again, right?
Have to wait because another public hearing would be required.
Correct.
It's just a
And I don't know if that was it. I think
Well,
we'll follow your lead.
All right.
And it would be our preference to come back as quickly as possible, because I think we can track down that information quickly, but we trust your judgment. So do whatever you need.
And I would just add, I think the mayor, someone said it, we're looking for something to say, can we keep moving forward on this, keep working together,
Right.
versus putting for sale sign on it. So.
Storming out.
No, just kidding.
There's a property for sale at 900 East, if you want, it's still for sale. Do we have any idea if we put it out a certain date, or it's up to Keith?
In order for
Keith
us
will
to-
just come in and ask us to suspend the rules. We know that.
I would maybe recommend that, and Nate, correct me if this doesn't make any sense, but is that in order for us to make sure that we have the right answer on that, and that we have time to notice it, that we're probably talking a month, 2 meetings out. Is that?
Yeah, no, we can do that. Yeah, that was what I was worried about. If we have to renotice it, then.
That would be the March
15th?
15th meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry, I'll chime in.
Oh.
I don't know if you can hear. I'm fairly certain. I don't know, just to clarify, I'm fairly certain to meet the March 15th date, we would be noticing in like a couple days. So it'd have to be at least April.
Okay, so the next one would be April 5th.
I mean, I guess we could say the April 5th one, and if somehow Keith magically can determine it and notice before then, we can do it before then, right? But if you put the April date, then we can be more certain, right?
Why don't we just leave it open and knowing that people are going to work as quickly to get the answer as possible and notice it
When we can.
properly?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, I do have just 2 more questions to clarify for the work that we need to do, which is, my assumption is that if we're saying we want to look at this issue, is that you are seeing a path to approval, right? So like if anyone in here was saying, let's, we'll look into this, but you don't think this is the right thing, I mean, I think that's important for everyone to know. And so if we had 3 people here who were saying, all right, let's look into that, but you're suspecting that you're not gonna like it in the end anyway, I mean, we should probably kind of discuss that. I just don't want to go through a bunch of work and not have it and then at that point not meet your needs. I know there's a lot of other things to sort of figure out, but again, it comes back to, as Dustin was saying, I mean, it is that sort of rezone issue. So if you don't like the rezone, and we're gonna go through and do this work, that might not be the path to go on. I'm not saying anyone is saying that, but I just wanna make sure that that's an understood thing, is that we're not just going through this and then we're not gonna do the rezone, even if you can get the access.
No, I agree. We don't want to waste everybody's time if the answer is just going to be no on the rezone.
And it's also, you know, there's nothing to compel us as council members to say how we would vote on that. I mean, we don't have all the information, so I would say, I think it's clear that I probably support, you know, the rezone as written tonight. I mean, I do, because it's not unlike anything else that we've done before. So, you know, it's not going to be a problem for me if they come back and say that they've gotten an answer to this very critical question. I'd be
Well, and I'll just disagree.
more likely.
You said it, this isn't like anything else we had, or how did you just say it?
I
This
don't
isn't like anything else we haven't done before.
Yeah.
I would, we have done that before. That's what I'm saying, is on the 900 East project, we have denied it, saying we would like to see access on the 9th East. By the way, they did get it, and we still denied it.
Yeah,
so
but I mean, to the same, even though it's a smaller.
But it was for a different reason.
Even though it's a smaller scale project, we did just tonight do the same thing to a property that touches this one. So, I mean, we have once maybe, but the vast majority of the time we've approved these rezones, especially when the color of the map is just the same color.
I mean, I vast majority vote no on them, so I can say confidently that it's.
I mean, I think even if you can get the ingress and egress onto 7200, there's still going to be some people who don't like it. But as we were asking each person, it sounded like more of them, they would be okay with it if you can go on to that. So I think that, you know, don't take offense to the term we use, public clamor, right? I think that's minimized a lot by having that ingress and egress onto that. So, you know, that's an important factor for me, the ingress and egress. So.
And I'll say if a 3-story for sale product will bring good neighbors generally, right? It's just a few more than people probably want, right? So it's something that the neighborhood has to sort of decide, right? Like, what if we wait and then instead they build whatever the maximum amount of duplexes there, rental duplexes, and they don't like those, right? Or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of things that can come out of it instead, you know? So I'm of the opinion that if the product has good parking and has that entrance on 7200, these 16 for sale units, and only 14 of them, I guess, would probably run on the 72, right? Because 2 of them are on a name. I'm not even going to attempt to say the street name because
Every time it has to be said, we'll just point to you.
Yeah, Romani. If I hear it, I can say it right then, but give me 5 minutes and it's gone. I'm pretty comfortable with it as long as a few other things are probably met, but that's where I'm at.
So it sounds to me, I mean, that's something with the development agreement, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's the parking issues, if we can have the access on 72. Can you have that in there? It has to be for sale units? Because once you rezone, they could change it and it could be rental, right? But I don't know if you can put that in the development agreement as part of that, so.
Well, because you'd want to do the HOA thing, right? So wouldn't that be, but I guess a rental could still do the same for the parking issue, right?
I wouldn't recommend it, but we can talk about it.
For what it's worth, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay. You ready for a motion, Mayor?
I'm ready for a motion.
This is where you say past time, right? All right. I move that we table. Let's see. I gotta find it. I move that we table the rezone request for the property located at 160 East, 7200 South, until we have an answer on the access to 7200 South. And that if that is deemed feasible, that the staff be authorized to begin preparing a development agreement for the council to consider when it's renoticed.
Second.
Discussion.
Tell me what you want me to fix in that one.
Sorry, yeah.
So are you saying you want a development agreement prepared for the next, if we have 7200 access, you want a development agreement?
Isn't that what
before
Matt was
bringing
saying he
back?
wanted?
Let's blame
I'm
Matt.
just trying
It's
to make
Matt's
Matt's
fault.
job easier.
Sorry, I thought it was an option. I wasn't sure if you were just saying you wanted us to come back once we clarified that was that.
Oh, okay, we can do that too.
It would take a step out though, right?
Somebody amend my motion.
If we went right to the development agreement, yeah.
Yeah. It would take a step out if we.
It would.
I still go with my second on that.
All right.
Unless Lisa thinks that's
Do
a
you need us
terrible
to tell
idea.
you what
I heard a
just wanted
hum
to
and I
make
just
sure.
wasn't sure.
No, I'm fine with that.
Discussion on the motion. Okay, Rory, will you call roll?
Okay, Councilmember Sperry,
I better approve my own motion. Aye.
Robinson. Aye. Brown
Yes.
and Gettle.
I'm going to vote no, and I'm just going to say because I think the rezone is appropriate. So, no.
Thank you.
That motion carries. Gotta get my papers here and see what we've got next.
I think we might have a bathroom break next, perhaps.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for the minutes of February 1st, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion?
Sorry, Mayor. I knew you were going to get to it. We'll just speed it up.
Thank you. Rory, is that roll call?
Yes, Councilmember Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Sperry.
Aye.
I should do things to the bathroom break.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion for that?
Motion of bathroom break.
Motion to take a 5-minute break.
Second.
5-minute break.
To do with whatever we want.
We will re-adjourn at get started at 9:58.
I just don't want the keys.
Hey, our siblings were married and they're divorced now, and we still get along.
What? It's online. It's online. Yeah, this.
Yeah, that they gave us.
Yeah, you can have that.
Yeah, there's still the additional.
Yeah, the packet itself is on the city website or the public notice website.
table the Harvest Days discussion also? I know he said this one.
What's that? I didn't even make it out.
Oh, that AC?
It's definitely
Well,
on.
Oh, off.
They reached.
I didn't turn the AC off.
Maybe not.
Literally hiding under the whole thing.
I almost just called you Harry. Quentin. Did I tell you when I was swearing in, my daughters looked at you and like,
Is the feet up?
Yeah.
Jake, is the feet up? Great.
But,
Okay, we are a minute behind. We're going to get started again. Moving into our action items, we've got 3 items here. For item A, consider resolution number 2022-R-05, appointing Matt Kasparian as an alternate member on the Planning Commission. Just some quick background on Matt. He'll step up and speak in a second. But Matt's a newer Midvale resident, been here for a few years now. Professionally is a construction project manager. And even though he hasn't had direct involvement with our city at this point, was impressed in our interview with him about his knowledge about ongoing issues in Midvale and some of the projects coming up. So with that, Matt, I'd ask you to come forward and present yourself for comments or questions from the council.
Hello, Matt Kasparian.
so you just saw what council's like.
Yeah.
Did you, yeah. You still
No.
want to? Do you still want to do this?
Yeah, certainly.
No. You saw what planning commission is like. That's usually what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Or worse.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what interests me about it, right? Seeing the public in here and voicing their concerns and and also seeing the people who are trying to get businesses, do things with their homes or their land. So yeah, it does interest me still. Yeah, after seeing everything,
What area are you in? Are you trying to cover as much of the city?
Yeah, if Matt's appointed, there will be at least one planning commission member from every city council district.
Which I think is
Fantastic.
a fantastic idea. Which one is he in? 5?
5.
Yeah, I'm on Main Street. I'm
testing
just,
my brain
yeah,
here, but 5.
I'm just down the street from Maverick on Main Street.
I don't have any.
You were project manager for
Granite Construction.
Okay.
And you've
So that's
not.
good.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so that's good. We've got, because we have an architect on there. We already have another builder, right? And you're in construction, so it's people who they'll understand the plans. Okay. Glenn's looking at me like, we do? We have another builder? Oh, okay, all right.
If there are no other questions or discussion, I'll ask for a motion to appoint Matt Kasparian as an alternate member to the Planning Commission.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 2022-R-05, appointing Matt Kasparian as an alternate member of the Planning Commission.
Second.
Any discussion? Rory, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Councilmember Robinson. Yes. Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
And Sperry.
Aye.
You said yes.
Great, that motion passes.
Yeah,
Congratulations. All that time for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action item B, consider ordinance number 2022-0-007, amending chapter 17-7-10.12, Jordan Bluffs sub-areas 1 to 3 or 1-3 of the Midvale City Municipal Code. Adam Olson.
I have been drooling, waiting for this one all night. I am so excited.
The representative from Gardner came and went, so so earlier tonight we had the field trip, if you will, the site visit to the Zions Bank campus. As part of that, they kind of showed us the fence material that they had in mind for the solar areas. And so they had also requested that when we do that, or when that site tour was arranged, that this also be brought back onto the agenda, and that's why it's here tonight. Let's go move forward. I'm trying to find. It was the
Ben, we're
very
on your
end,
item right now.
There's Ben.
the fencing one. There we go. Yeah. So tonight, or earlier tonight, when we went to the site visit, they showed us a similar product to this. When this was before you prior, there was an exclusion made for chain link material, and it was requested that that be reconsidered. When this was reconsidered in January, it was tabled for basically further information and the site visit, and so that's now happened, and so it's back before us tonight, and I'll let them speak to that. So,
Is that the lowest it can be?
What was that?
The fence?
The height?
Yeah.
That's what you saw there today?
Yeah.
I'll look into that. I believe so.
Because
That's for Rocky Mountain Power spec. That's.
Because
Will you step up to the mic?
Yeah.
Ricky move. Ben Seastrand, 201 South Main Street in Salt Lake. And yeah, I'll confirm that. I believe we build it just to the minimum requirement of Rocky Mountain Power. And that's what we do in either case, regardless of the material.
Right.
Yeah.
That would make sense. It just disappeared quicker than I thought, and if it was shorter, it would disappear even quicker.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm just a little more concerned with the what do they call it? Hydro seed, natural.
What's going to be underneath the?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Well, we've got that and the chain link still. I mean, I will admit, you really can't see it much when you're up on top.
Yeah.
But a concern of mine was how much garbage it would collect.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's a fair concern. I'm not sure how much more the chain link would collect versus the wrought iron or what, but it's definitely something to think about. And I think as specifically that section of the property with Zions Bank and the HOA, we'd have people out there cleaning it up or looking at. We don't want it to look unruly either. But
come down to what if Rocky Mountain Power required 5 inches or 3 inches or 2 inches between spacing, that would make that garbage collection different, right? I guess. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know if anyone here knows what that would be.
Yeah. Are there any other questions that I can answer? One concern that was brought up, I believe it was from Councilmember Glover last time we talked about this, was just the proximity of the fence to the top of the slope. And I thought it helped to go out there to kind of see how, even when you're on at the park, we don't think it'll be, and regardless of what the fence material is, we don't see it being a big issue of taking over that line of sight when you're at the park.
I don't think that any of us really have the concern of, the fence itself looking terrible. Like, how many fences have you walked past and said, "Oh my God, that's a horrible looking fence"? It's just, there are many places, there are many city parks that have those fences, and if they're not properly maintained, they get graffitied. Just trash bags, plastic bags from the store get caught in them, and it just doesn't look good. This isn't the fencing standard is for us to determine, but the fence itself just boggles my mind that you need it, because it doesn't do anything at all. It's like the bridge to nowhere. Like,
yes.
This fence, like, anyone could climb it.
100%.
At like any age.
Yeah.
Yes. And especially with the slope being what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like I could run and jump over it.
Yes. If you're determined to get over the fence, like, you're getting over the fence.
Yeah,
I don't think
so-
it's really not deterring someone who's determined to get over the fence.
At best, it would keep like a ball from rolling down underneath, and that's why I was wondering if it could be like a 3-foot fence or
Yeah, and so I'll look more into that. I think we're totally open if we could get specific on this, specific to the use surrounding solar, and any other specifics that we want to put onto that in terms of the verbiage. I think the main point of this, and why I think we've already spent probably more time discussing fencing than any of you would care to, is just as you're out there, you can see the length of this slope and the extent of it. I think Zions is doing an incredible job of setting a high bar and a high standard for the site of going this extra mile and paying for these sustainability measures. As we look at future projects down the road, we want to continue that and continue to grow that. I know no one wants to talk, it's not fun to talk about like the financing of things, but I think the reason we're pushing back on this is because anytime we're doing these sustainable measures from a project standpoint, I don't want to say it hurts the project, but they're just costs that there's not really a big incentive to bear them besides just trying to do good and be a responsible developer. So this is one area where it would just help us considerably as we look to do more solar down on the slope. It would help us just in that regard to do more, because that's what we want to do. But that's really it. We're completely understanding your points of where you're coming from on this matter.
I will say that 5 of us were opposed to
Yeah.
this type of fencing, and I think that you've done a good job in we'll see, convincing us that, it is okay for this particular project. Is there any, you can do some artistic projects with a chain link fence? That might be something to consider.
Yeah, I could definitely look into that as well.
You'll do it yourself?
Yeah, you wouldn't want that. I don't think it would be a good type of art. I'm not talented in that way, but yeah, we could look into that as well.
I would be way more inclined if I had an Apache helicopter ride to tour the fence. But
that may be above the $50 benefit
snacks,
limit
the tour. I gotta think about these things.
Can we? The last thing I would want to ever see, could we exclude to make sure that they can't put in like those plastic slats or anything else, right? Because that's where chain link fences get real sketchy, and that's where they get tagged. It's hard to spray paint.
100%.
And I know
that would
you
be
could say like we don't want to.
That would be welcomed by us if we wanted to put that in there. Yeah. It's definitely not the look we're going for.
I agree.
It just, Councilmember Gettle made a good point. We were very adamantly against it. And looking at it today, I was really annoyed when I couldn't see it after like 10 feet. Like, come on, this is not what I was expecting.
Well, and interestingly, the fence down the slope that's maintained by the Jordan River, like that fence is horrible. That's one that looks like it's going to blow over in the next windstorm. So at least yours looks better than that. And it might not be the first choice of any of us up here, but it didn't look horrible. I'll say that.
You said we probably talked about fences more than we want. We have a pretty high tolerance. I mean, we talked about pygmy goats ad nauseum
for like a year.
Yeah. I was actually at.
We have a long ways to
I will
go.
say I was at one of those meetings, and that was fascinating.
If I'm known for
I
nothing
learned
else.
a lot. I learned a lot.
Then you got to stick around for harvesting because goat yoga is on
Look,
the agenda.
I'm not going anywhere. This is
All
good
right,
stuff.
sounds good.
Okay, but I'm happy to respond to any other questions or concerns you might have. But other than that, we'll just leave it to y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to consider here? I don't see one in the. I see a picture of the fence in our notes, but no.
There'll be a little pygmy goat.
Is this it? Oh, okay. No, this is the art conference. It goes from the fence to art.
It's the 70. Yeah.
I do recall.
Wait.
Basically,
Yeah, that one.
So this was the motion, but then this was also the same motion that you added the exclusion of chain link. So you could, if you were thinking of taking that back out, you could just remove that.
So I guess the non-obscuring would go towards that question I had about making sure they don't.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Adam, do we need to add in the ordinance number?
It would be the same one, I believe. It's just a reconsideration, one that was done in December.
It has a new ordinance number on.
New ordinance
on here.
I got
Sorry.
it. So you were saying to that motion, we need to add something in about the chain link or not?
So this was the original motion,
Right.
and then with this motion, there was the exclusion of chain link added into it, and so so the ordinance had that into it when it was approved with the exclusion of chain link. They're asking for a reconsideration to remove that chain link exclusion.
So if we pass this motion that's on the screen as written, everything is good to go. You can do the fence. We don't have to hear about it again.
I would still recommend if you do this motion, with the finding noted in the staff report and removing the prohibition of chain link or removing the exclusion of chain link.
But do we have to include something of that you can't put the slats in?
You probably could if you wanted to.
Okay.
So.
And the last question, this might be for Lisa. I don't know that I've ever had one of these that we approved something and then it came back to us to reconsider. Do we have to do something officially as council to bring the issue back? Because I thought our rules stated that once we pass something, it had to be like a vote of the council to reconsider it.
Palm to the forehead emoji.
And didn't you do that last time?
Maybe.
Yeah,
I think we
I
did.
think you did it and then we
Yeah,
denied it again.
you're right.
Or something like that.
Yeah, we did do that and then we tabled it.
Yeah, we tabled it.
Okay, so we're good. Okay. Well then, I move that we approve the request to amend Chapter 17-7-10.12 relating to fencing and screening standards of the Midvale City Municipal Code with the findings noted in the staff report and removing the exclusion for chain link fencing and including the exception for plastic slatting.
You probably need the ordinance number in there, right?
Yes, but I'm not going to read that all again, so.
Go ahead, it's okay. Bro.
Considering ordinance, or, okay, you got it?
But yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Well done. Lisa didn't even put a palm to the forehead or anything like she did after my motion. So you did well.
There's no auto
Exactly. It's like,
She elbowed me in the ribs, you didn't see it, so.
Well, Heidi elbowed me and said, "You are not making this motion." But I will second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Sperry.
Aye.
And Robinson. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, that passes.
Heidi wants to change the ordinance that I'm not allowed in meetings after 10. It's past my bedtime.
You need a red one.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item C so we can actually get this done. Read the item.
This is the one we're
Yep. Item C, consider resolution number 2022-R-07 regarding Art Conference and Mural Festival Grant and Fund Transfer. We want to bring up Cody now.
Well, so this is where you would,
We need to move to recess.
I think you can just go to the recess at this point.
Okay. Because of this item, we need to recess as a council and then convene
Mayor, I move
as
that
the
we-
RDA.
I move that we adjourn our city council meeting to go into the RDA. Recess, because adjourn would mean that we're leaving. Recess. I move that we recess the city council meeting to go into the RDA meeting to come back into the city council meeting at a later time.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. I'm glad to see I'm not the only one struggling with motions tonight.
Any discussion?
I think we should have seconded his first one.
Was that adjourned?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have Glover here. How are
All
we
in
gonna
favor?
adjourn? We're not going to get out of this.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. We are recessed in now the Regional Development Agency of Midvale City. This. Okay.
Any other
Well,
agenda?
welcome everyone to the new meeting. Rory, will you please call roll?
Yes, Board Member Brown.
Here.
Robinson. Here.
I want to say
Gettle.
yes.
Still here.
Sperry.
You wish I wasn't here, but I'm here.
I didn't know that this is what happens when we get after.
I forgot. We get after dark.
After
It's
10
little-
p.m., it just gets crazy.
Wow.
It quickly goes downhill starting on this side.
See, most people leave, but they should stay for this.
Yes.
And, you know, they break out the popcorn.
This portion of we're going into public comments. This portion of the agenda is for anything not addressed in the public hearings portion of the agenda. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Roll call.
Rory, please call roll.
Board Member Gettle.
Yes.
Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. And Brown.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to our action item, consider resolution number 2022-01 RDA regarding Art Conference and Mural Festival grant and fund transfer. Cody Hill.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you, RDA Board. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. And I'll go into kind of the minutia why we needed to break into the RDA meeting and then reconvene as the City Council. So 2 weeks ago, we met and we discussed the art grant, which involves the art conference and the mural festival, and received really good feedback from you, and we appreciate that. And we've crafted an agreement that incorporates all of your feedback. The concerns that you have, I believe, are resolved in this agreement. High level, the total amount for the grant is possible of $131,000, which is the 119 plus a possible 10% contingency, which is if their prices increase or were higher than they estimated, then they would have to come to the RDA, the agency staff, and request that additional any additional funds more than that 119,000, and then if they needed more than 131,000, they would have to come back here. The agency will distribute the funds with one disbursement of 60,000, so roughly half of that 119,000, and then they would need to spend that according to the budget that they have in Exhibit A, and they can diverge from that by 20%, but any divergence from that greater than 20% would need to be approved by agency staff, and any misuse of funds, any unspent funds would need to be returned to the agency. But basically, if they spend all of that 60,000 and they show us receipts, third-party contracts, invoices, make a full accounting, we review it and it looks good, then they'll get another disbursement of 59,000 for the remainder of the 119,000 funding. So I think that really speaks to Council Member Glover's concerns about we want good accountability, we want to know exactly what they're spending, how they're using the funds, and assurances that they're going to be spent responsibly. And for the art conference, the ticket sales, it's in the contract or the agreement that 10% of the proceeds from the art conference will go towards Hillcrest High School's art department to support their programming, and 35% will go to the speakers, and then 55% will go to All Caps Studio. And then the other points of the agreement is specifically to Councilmember Brown, 25% or 6 of the murals, whichever is greater, will be dedicated to Midvale residents or business owners, someone that owns a business within Midvale. We're thinking specifically the kind of art-oriented businesses on Main Street. There's tattoo shops where you're going to find some good artists that could potentially have interest in participating in a mural. So that those will be assigned to Midvale residents or business owners. The agency may require its participation in mural artists, the selection process. So if we feel like we need to be involved in that and saying, well, who's going to be participating, we can be a part of that selection process if we want to exercise that right. The murals will comply with the standards, the content standards. So nothing explicit, religious, corporate logos, anything like that has to be avoided. That's in the agreement. And as I said before, that any unused funds or anything spent outside of the parameters of their proposed budget within that 20% leniency would have to be returned. And so that is the nuts and the bolts of the agreement. And then Main Street CDA, that was actually exciting. Today I received the email from Salt Lake County with their signed interlocal agreement. So we have all the interlocal agreements in place and they're all signed and we're excited and ready to go. But the Main Street CDA does not have the $131,000 to allocate at this time. So we would need to transfer funds between Bingham Junction RDA and the Main Street CDA. And if you're going to do that, that's a legal and appropriate use of RDA funds. But there's two things that you need to do. You need board approval and you need city council or the governing body of the municipality's approval. And you need projections that show that the loan can be repaid, that Main Street RDA will be capable of repaying whatever loan money is loaned to it. And so we do have forecasting that supports that, that this will be a loan that we can repay from Main Street back to the Bingham Junction RDA. And so the resolution includes approving of the agreement and also approves the transfer of funding. And if you approve this resolution and agreement, then you'll reconvene as the city council and just consider the transfer of funding. And so if you have any questions for me, or we also have Brigham and Elias from All Caps here as well, if you have any additional questions or concerns.
Cody, I appreciate the 25%. I still want to make sure some of them are residents, and that's worded where it wouldn't.
Okay.
Where it could be, all 6 could be business owners, which I think is great.
Yeah.
You know, but I want to be able to say at least one person that lives here, because this is a lot of money. You know, we give half this to the Arts Council or less every year, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're happy with their funding, right? And their goal is really to push, you know, to get as many Midvale residents to do their productions and get involved as much as possible. In fact, we should be including the Arts Council probably in this somehow.
I agree.
Not necessarily put into the resolution per se. I've thought a lot about this since then, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're sort of the anchor on the south end of Maine. I think it would be good faith for the city to introduce the two parties or whatever, so they can be involved in some way if they want to be. But I really want to make sure that there's at least a few people that live in Midvale, because you know, obviously businesses pay taxes too, so I appreciate that. But there's just something about the community when also, you know, there's a student that's a good artist or a grandma or something that, you know, like, hey, this is the city and I've painted this one wall, you know, with how much money would flow.
Yeah, and we have, so like you said, it says resident or business owners, but we also have a provision whereby we can be a part of the mural artist selection process. And so we can exercise that right and bring in part of the Main Street Public Art Program advisory board, which you're a part of, and be a part of that or participate in the selection process.
Okay.
So does the Hillcrest High School already know this donation is in there?
Do you want to speak to that in your connection there?
Sure.
Okay.
I want to hear from that. I mean, come up. I just like what Councilmember Brown's comment was too, of the involvement of the Arts Council, because, I mean, they also do their shows right here in this area that we're trying to get going, right? So if we can, you know, in this CDA, try to help them get more awareness, I think that's, you know, bolstering our purpose of improving the arts here in this area. So,
Will you start with stating your name? Too?
Yes, I'm Elias McCam, owner of All Caps Art Gallery here in Midvale, co-owner with Brigham. So I'm addressing about Hillcrest High School.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I mean, they know it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the, so we've spoken with the assistant principal and the career coordinator, like the career services coordinator at the school, and talked to them. We're going to meet with them next week about implementing art programs and doing like art programs for the art students, the students that are interested in art and then they also want to do some type of like job shadow, like job fair situation where we'll come to the school, we'll say, hey kids, we're professional artists and this is how we make a living doing it. You can do this as a career. We're doing a mural festival where if you're interested, you can come and participate with artists. You know, if you'd like to paint a wall, we can coordinate that and kind of show them the benefits of like, here's how to be an artist, here's how to work with art and like work with the city and do these fun things and be creative as a career.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's more than I thought was going to be in the involvement of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder with the school being that involved, if they'll even send out information to the students or through the school district, right? Through, what's the program they use? I don't know, you get the emails.
Peach Jar? No,
yeah, I think that's what it is, Peach Jar. You know, if they're able to send something out to just build awareness of the conference and try to attract more people.
That's kind of how it started. I spoke with the assistant principal and said, hey, is there any art opportunities for the high school that we can come do? And she introduced me to the career services. She does like field trips where the kids will go to like a factory and see how factory workers work, or they'll go to the police station and see all that stuff. And so she was like, you could do something like that with your art gallery or something like that. And that's when we brought up the conference and the festival and things like that. And so we're gonna sit down with them next week and put all of that together. But we did tell them, hey, we're doing this art conference and we want to donate 10% of our ticket sales to the school and then help you guys implement these programs so that we don't just like, they know how to make the best use of it, of like, you know, we've built mural cubes for the city. If you want to do something like that, here's how we'll do it, like all of that kind of stuff. So we'll help them put together those programs and stuff as well.
Awesome.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Either one of you could maybe answer this. 130,000, it's a lot of money, providing receipts. Is there any plan in place at this point to either A, make sure that you're tracking receipts and how that process works with the RDA?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, so just in the agreement, it states that they will get their first disbursement of 60,000. Once that is spent down and they provide us with a full accounting of receipts, third-party contracts and invoices that they've paid, they provide that to the agency, and then we will review everything that they've submitted. If we have any questions about something, that anything doesn't make sense, we'll go back to them and ask them for more clarification. And then once we've seen that there has been a full accounting, then they'll get the second disbursement of 59,000, and then they have to, within, I think, 30 days of the mural festival, submit the second round of receipts, contracts, invoices, and we will review it and make sure that everything has been spent according to their budget. And if they fail to do that, then they would have to repay any amount that was unaccounted for or misspent.
Just generally speaking, and maybe Lisa or Matt would know, have we as a city ever done anything like this where we've provided funds to a group and then made them sort of account for it? You know, I just want to make sure, like, it's going to be a substantial burden on the city staff if all of a sudden they're doing it. Have we done it before so we know?
Yes, so this is, I would say, very similar to our overburden costs approvals. So all of our tax increment reimbursements, like with Zions, with Gardner, they are promised that if they have overburden costs up to like $5 million, they submit receipts and say, these are the overburden costs, you know, this trench line, this liner, this system was an overburden cost, and we need you to, you know, look at it and approve it and then reimburse us. And so that's a process that we're familiar with and do quite regularly.
Okay.
Cody, the only question I have is that the two disbursements you mentioned add up to the 119, but the motion that you want us to approve, it has the amount 131, which is
correct.
The 10%. So normally in government speak, that means we know it's going to cost $131,000 most likely, and maybe more than that. So I'm just wondering why we'd put the 131, 730 in the recommendation when we don't know that we're going to spend more than the 60 plus 59?
That's a good question. They gave us a budget that was 119, their best estimate. I would like to hold them to that. And if unforeseen costs come up or, inflation arises and throws off their best estimate that they gave us, that there is an $11,000 leeway that the agency staff can decide, okay, that makes sense, we can grant you this. But if it's any more than that 10%, then they would have to come back
Okay.
To you.
But if unused, if it does cost exactly $150,000, we'll put $12,000 back
Correct.
into. Okay.
Yep, we'll transfer it back to Bingham Junction for the part of the repayment.
Okay. That sounds perfectly reasonable.
And so I didn't want to make it, well, we're just going to give you 131 because that's 10%. We wanted to hold it to 119,
Yeah.
but with a 10% contingency that they would have to justify.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Is there what's the deadline on the 60,000 is there a timeline on that and then where that 59 comes in?
That's a good question. Once this agreement, if this agreement is approved, then we'll make that transfer to Bingham Junction to the Main Street CDA, and then we'll issue the payment of $60,000. There is no deadline. There is a deadline for when they need to have the mural festival. This agreement will end this year in December, and you can't have a mural festival when it's freezing outside. That just doesn't work. And so if they don't have, the funds spent by then they would have to return any unused funds. But they would, so I think that is the deadline, is just holding the event. And if they don't hold the event, then they would have to return any misused or unspent funds.
I'm curious from the two of you on, with that 60,000, are you looking at that as that's your conference, or that 60,000 is, or the conference is only half of that, and then the rest is going to the mural?
So their budget for the conference, I believe, is 40,000. So that gets them the conference, and then 20,000 into their mural festival costs.
And you can't do one without, can we just do the mural, festival, or just the conference, I'm trying to tie the two together.
Yeah.
Right.
So it does make sense. Sorry, were you done with your question?
No,
I didn't want
that's
to. Okay. Yeah. So the way that they've proposed it makes a lot of sense. They want to have the mural, the art conference first, bring awareness to Midvale City, bring artists together, because our goal is to create an arts and culture district. And so having a first step being, hey, we're going to bring artists to Midvale. We're going to have a conference. We're going to bring 138 artists here, creators here, and have a conference with them, talk about things that can help their business and improve how they can improve themselves as artists. And we're at that event, we're going to not just make them aware of the art house and Midvale, but also publicize and make them aware of the mural festival. And so it ramps up into the mural festival, and there's more engagement and participation as a result.
Where are we holding the conference at again?
That's actually been proposed to be the Arts Council building. And due to our relationship and support of it, I believe they're going to offer the building without a fee.
No, I thought
have
that
they,
was.
have they, right.
Sorry, I thought it was the Midvale, the theater on Main Street, not the Old Town.
The Performing Arts Theater is on Main, I'm sorry, on Center. And the Midvale Main is on Main.
Across the street.
Obviously. But I don't know if Mavic, the Center Street, like what I'm a part of, the Arts Council, I don't know if they know that.
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Either one of those sounds good, as long as it's not
Yeah.
Gardner Village.
I think it was Ashley Grant. I spoke with her.
You did speak with Ashley?
Yeah, and we asked if we could use the Performing Arts Theater, and at first she said, oh, no, we have an event that day, but then she emailed me back and said, yeah, you guys are good to go for the 30th.
That's who I was going to suggest to contact, so
yeah,
that answers my question.
You said for which day?
For April 30th.
April 30th.
We plan on April 30th for the conference, and then the week leading up to June 25th, which is a Saturday, to have the mural festival. So like everyone will start painting that Wednesday or Thursday. We'll get all the lifts and ladders coordinated,
Nice.
and then people can kind of come drive by, and then that Saturday will be like a big street festival, and people can watch the paintings being finished and live music and all that kind of stuff. So.
And it's what, like 20 murals or so?
25, maybe more. I've tried to speak with some of the business owners before, and it got real weird. But I think having the city's backing, like me just going in there by myself, like, hey, the city said that we could paint murals as the boss around, and they're like, oh, no, we don't want any. But I think it'll go better this time.
And that's part of you getting this grant money as well. So now you say that we have not only the city's approval behind us, but, money to do these projects.
It should sell itself though, right? Like if they don't buy in this year, I mean, they're gonna have FOMO and
That's kind of what we explained last year. Even if they're against it this time, they don't want to be, like, no business wants to be the only business without art on it. Because then, like, how come I wasn't invited? And then that works out better for us.
Do you have businesses who have said, yes, please put a mural on my large alley wall?
We haven't asked yet, but we have. Oh, so the theater right next to the art house, she was definitely all, totally down for it. But we have like gone around and like done some recon, taken pictures of walls, the locations of them, tried to find out through some internet Sherlocking who the business owner is. Okay, when the time comes, this is who we need to reach out to. This is their number. This is their email or something, like all of that kind of stuff. So
cool.
Did I see something that was there a proposal of doing a mural of Mayor Seguini? Was that in there?
That wasn't.
That
was a
project.
Oh, it was a project. Okay.
That was, the basketball court.
Oh, yeah, it was a basketball court. Okay.
So I said it the last time, but, the price seems, some people would look at it and say that seems high, and they could be right or not right, I don't know. But, it does include the cost of 20 to 25 murals, which, to me is like priceless.
That's one thing that we wanted to do was make sure that artists know that if they paint a wall, they're getting paid to do so, like getting paid for their services. And the reason that it was like the 119 is when we sat down and said, okay, it's going to cost this much to fly this many people in from out of town and get them, these hotels in this place. That was the budget that we had at that time, but that was like a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago. And so we figured like the longer it takes, the more flights might go up or fluctuate or something like that. That's why the budget was kind of a little like that. So.
Well, you know where I stand. I think it's a great idea, money well spent, and we get 20 or so murals. So there is no downside from my perspective.
Awesome.
Sounds cool.
Any other comments or questions?
You guys have the best dressed of the evening. Those pants are awesome. You should sell those.
We just came from a mural job, actually.
I'm like, I'm terrible at art and painting, but I want to go throw some paint on some jeans because I think that's. They look awesome. I'm not mocking you. I really do like them.
Do we have a motion on the action item?
Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution number 2022-01 RDA authorizing the execution of the Arts Conference and Mural Festival grant agreement between the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City and All Caps Art Studio, along with an authorization to transfer funds from the Bingham Junction RDA to the Main Street CDA to fund said grant agreement in an amount of $131,730.
Second.
Any discussion? Or will you call roll?
Yes, Board Member Gettle.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I was talking.
Barry.
Me? Yes. Yeah.
Robinson. Aye. And Brown.
Oh man.
Yes.
We sure we want these meetings to go past 10? I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
I just commented how the lights just went out.
Yeah,
That
I know. That's
definitely
why I took
means
quick.
it's time to go.
It's time to go.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Back into
Do we have to reconvene our city council?
Yes.
But do we have to
Well,
reconvene?
at least minimally, momentarily. Okay, is there a second on the motion to adjourn the RDA and reconvene as city council?
Second? Yep, we got it. Second.
Marcus is
Marcus does not know what to do. You're going to go home and your wife is going to be like, can you fire some of those people?
He can definitely not vote for me ever again.
Okay, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed?
No.
Great, that passes. We are now reconvened as the city council. Great.
Everybody
So,
on YouTube
now
has
we
signed up.
back to, okay, we are still on action item C, consider resolution number 2022-R-07 regarding art conference and mural festival grant and fund transfer. Cody Hill.
I feel like we've talked about this.
Yeah, again, just one of the requirements is that the RDA board approves of the transfer and the governing body of the municipality approves. So it needs to be done by you as RDA board members and as you as city council members. So if you have any questions.
What if we all voted no on this one? Like, how messed up would that be?
Is this where we're going to have a mural of Mayor Sagini? Is that this?
Have we asked the businesses if we could paint murals?
All the same.
Yeah.
We want all the same questions.
Yeah, those are cool pants.
I stand by that. Those are really cool.
Do we have a motion?
Yes. Mayor, I move that we adopt. I move that we adopt resolution number 2022-R-07, a resolution approving the transfer of funds from the Bingham Junction RDA to the Main Street CDA to fund the art conference and mural festival grant agreement.
Second.
I'm glad Dustin has it together.
Is there any discussion?
He's by himself over
Okay, I don't hear any. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
No,
I'm
roll
sorry,
call.
sorry,
Sorry.
roll call. Rory.
Glover?
Mayor's out of control.
Carried. Robinson. Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Rory, did you call everybody? I'm
I
sorry,
did,
I was
yes.
distracted. Thank you. Thank you. That motion passes.
Thank you.
Mayor, I move that we table the next two discussion items for a later date.
Second.
Any discussion?
Oh, man.
Okay, all in favor?
Sorry, Laura.
Or is that a roll call?
I think
No,
we have to.
no.
Because
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, that passes. Final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Should adjourn.